To be honest, I'm not entirely sure about the grade of this blood spirit fire, or even whether I know it at all. You don't know. This blood spirit fire belongs to your auction house, yet you don't know. Qin Chen was speechless. This fire wasn't obtained from any specific blood beast. Rumor has it that it came from an ancient ruin. After it was delivered to our commerce, the alchemists of our heavenly star commerce studied it. However, it exceeded the grading level of our alchemists, so we aren't sure exactly how high the grade of the blood spirit fire is. In fact, we initially suspected whether it was actually blood spirit fire, because its aura changes over time. But after reaching a certain point, the spiritual energy within the fire becomes very obvious, and that's when we determined it was blood spirit fire. There's such a fire. Qin Chen was astonished. The alchemists of the heavenly star commerce are at least of the third rank, and their judgment of flames must have reached a considerably high level. Yet, they almost couldn't identify a flame. That's a bit strange. Is your commerce planning to give me this blood spirit fire? The more the heavenly star commerce couldn't identify it, the more interested Qin Chen became. After all, flames that could be easily identified by a third-rank alchemist wouldn't usually be high-grade flames. The more difficult it was to identify, the higher the grade of the flame would definitely be. The probability of dispelling his 100-ghost curse would definitely be higher. Duan Lingtian shook his head and said, "This flame isn't a treasure of our heavenly star commerce. It was consigned to us by another seller for auction. We can't make the decision to give it directly to Grandmaster Qin." Qin Chen frowned. "If you don't have the ability to give it away, why are you saying so much? Although our heavenly star commerce doesn't have the ability to give this blood spirit fire to you, it will be auctioned at our quarterly auction tomorrow. Our heavenly star commerce is willing to spare no expense to bid for this blood spirit fire and give it to Grandmaster Qin," Duan Lingtian said proudly. "Then I must thank Chairman Duan. However, if this young master needs it, I can completely bid for it myself. I'm not short of money." Qin Chen laughed. "Ha ha ha. With Grandmaster Qin's strength, you naturally won't be short of money. But for Grandmaster Qin, the heavenly star commerce isn't without cooperative value. After all, Grandmaster Qin is still young and probably doesn't want to spend too much energy on acquiring materials. If Grandmaster Qin trusts me, you can cooperate with our heavenly star commerce. Our heavenly star commerce guarantees that any treasures and high-grade materials will be reserved for Grandmaster Qin at the first opportunity. Of course, I won't force this matter. Since Grandmaster Qin is interested in the blood spirit fire, here is a VIP card for our heavenly star auction house. Grandmaster Qin can come directly to our heavenly star auction house tomorrow. The only thing I can guarantee is the sincerity of our heavenly star commerce." Duan Lingtian was also straightforward. Knowing that Qin Chen wouldn't agree immediately, he cupped his fist and turned to leave the first pill pavilion. After seeing Duan Lingtian out of the first pill pavilion, Zhu Sheng returned to Qin Chen's side. "Young Master Chen, are you really not planning to cooperate with the Heavenly Star Commerce? The Heavenly Star Commerce is the most prominent force in Martial City and also the most conflicting force with the first pill pavilion." Zhu Sheng couldn't believe that young Master Chen would be like this in front of Chairman Duan Lingtian, acting indifferent. What surprised Zhu Sheng even more was Duan Lingtian's attitude towards Qin Chen. Although it was said that Chairman Duan Lingtian of the Heavenly Star Commerce was a decent person, it didn't mean that they weren't overbearing, as the number of forces that had been annexed by the Heavenly Star Commerce was countless, and some had even suffered a bloody purge. But in front of young Master Chen, Duan Lingtian's attitude was so equal. Moreover, Zhu Sheng faintly felt that Chairman Duan Lingtian seemed to know something about young Master Chen's identity, as if he was from the Great Qi Kingdom. This was what caused him to have such an attitude, but even a prince of the Great Qi Kingdom wouldn't necessarily cause Chairman Duan Lingtian to have such an attitude, right? Zhu Sheng couldn't figure it out at all. After glancing at Zhu Sheng, Qin Chen smiled and said, "Cooperation with the Heavenly Star Commerce is inevitable, but there's no need to rush to agree to them." He could indeed ignore the Heavenly Star Commerce, leave after the auction, and wash his hands of the matter. However, the Zhu family still had to survive in Martial City. After he left, without a backer, the Zhu family would definitely be destroyed by the Zhu family and other family heads in a matter of minutes. What's more, The Heavenly Star commerce was after all a top-ranked commerce in the Northwest 5 nations. Cooperating with them would have more advantages than disadvantages. At least, as Duan Lingtian had said, if he needed any high-grade materials in the future, he could completely obtain them through the Heavenly Star commerce, and he wouldn't have to worry so much. The only thing that makes Qin Chen nervous now is what level the blood spirit fire mentioned by the Heavenly Star commerce is. If it really exceeds his expectations and can dispel his 100 ghost curse, then this trip will be worth it. In any case, after tomorrow's auction, regardless of whether I can obtain the sacred material or whether the blood spirit fire can dispel the 100 ghost curse, I have to leave. Before that, I'll first improve my strength. I believe that the Zhu family will definitely not let me leave so peacefully. Prepare yourself, we won't be accepting any pill customizations today. After instructing Zhu Sheng, Qin Chen closed himself up again. The Zhu family. What? Old man Duan went to the first pill pavilion alone and then came out after a short while. Zhu Hongji suddenly stood up, his expression gloomy. What is this old man Duan up to? Brother, what's wrong? Could it be that the Heavenly Star commerce didn't attack the first pill pavilion? That's impossible. Zhu Hongjian also stood up in shock. Zhu Hongji frowned, put his hands behind his back, and walked back and forth in the hall, his brows furrowed, seemingly unable to figure it out. Zhu Hongjian was speechless and said, in the past few days, how much business has the first pill pavilion stolen from the Heavenly Star commerce? So many high-grade materials have been lost. Wouldn't old man Duan feel the pain? According to old man Duan's previous virtues, he would have stripped the other party clean long ago. This time, he's actually so abnormal, going over alone and without any movement. What's wrong with this guy? He's a man who won't get up early without a profit. Hearing this, Zhu Hongji suddenly stopped. Turning his head, second brother, what did you just say? Zhu Hongjian was stunned and said, I said, according to old man Duan's previous virtues, he would have stripped the other party clean long ago. No, it's the last sentence. Zhu Hongjian thought for a moment and said, he is a man who won't get up early without a profit. He only spoke halfway before his eyes suddenly widened, and he said in shock, brother, are you saying that old man Duan might have taken a fancy to the other party's pills? Very likely. Zhu Hongji's face was so gloomy it seemed like it could drip water. With the Heavenly Star Merchant Association's connections, as long as they can obtain the pills from the first pill pavilion, they will definitely be able to sweep across the entire martial city, and even spread outwards. Sweeping across the entire Northwest 5 nations is not impossible. That old fellow Duan is indeed cunning, actually plotting this. He had painstakingly waited for the Heavenly Star Merchant Association and the first pill pavilion to have a conflict, but he didn't expect that after waiting for so long, this would be the result. Brother, what should we do now? Zhu Hongjian was dumbfounded. Once the Heavenly Star Merchant Association and the first pill pavilion unite, the difficulty for their Zhu family to deal with Qin Chen will definitely increase greatly. HMPH. Since the Heavenly Star Merchant Association won't take action, then we will do it ourselves. You immediately go to the martial arts residence and have them arrange a place for us to meet in secret, Zhu Hongji said, narrowing his eyes. Will the people from the martial arts residence agree? Zhu Hongji said coldly, if it's just dealing with the first pill pavilion, the martial arts residence might not agree. After all, they rarely get involved in such matters. But since the Heavenly Star Merchant Association wants to join forces with the first pill pavilion, they have no choice but to agree. The Heavenly Star Merchant Association is the #1 power in Martial City, and it already suppresses the other 3 major powers, leaving them with little room to survive. If they join forces with the first pill pavilion, their position as the 3rd major power will definitely become more and more difficult in the future. The martial arts residence has extremely strong strength, so they naturally won't sit idly by at this time. As for why not involve the Song family, the Zhu family and the Song family have always been at odds. Such a good thing as dealing with the first pill pavilion should naturally not be shared with others. Joining forces with the martial arts residence is only because the Heavenly Star Merchant Association has joined in. Brother, should we send people to monitor the first pill pavilion and the Heavenly Star Merchant Association first? If the two families really unite, the Heavenly Star Merchant Association will definitely send experts to protect the first pill pavilion. Moreover, that kid is an outsider, and no one knows when he will leave. Don't worry about that. Tomorrow is the Heavenly Star Merchant Association's quarterly auction. Since that kid wants materials, he naturally won't leave before the auction. However, what you said is not without reason. Immediately send people to keep an eye on the first pill pavilion and all the entrances and exits of Marshall City. We must not let that kid leave like this. Yes. Zhu Hongjun looked excited and immediately went to make arrangements. In the hall, Zhu Hongji snorted coldly, an outsider causing trouble in my Marshall City, and even killing my Zhu family's disciples. If I really let you leave alive, how will my Zhu family survive in Marshall City in the future? Kid, blame it on your ignorance for offending us. A thick killing intent lingered in the hall. Inside the first pill pavilion's refining room, Qin Chen sat cross-legged, constantly circulating the 9-star Divine Emperor art, adjusting his entire aura to a mysterious and profound state. Then, he began to mobilize the mental energy in his mind, and according to an extremely strange operating method, he began to condense mental runes. Buzz! The transparent mental sword in his mind trembled gently, and strands of invisible mental energy, like transparent threads, continuously emanated out, forming a series of obscure and unpredictable mental patterns in the sky above his mind. What Qin Chen is currently practicing is the second form of the Myriad God technique. The Myriad God technique is an extremely terrifying mental cultivation secret technique. In his previous life, relying on this secret technique, Qin Chen was able to break through the 9th level mental power at the 8th level Martial Emperor realm and become a 9th grade Emperor level alchemist. The Myriad God technique has a total of 5 forms. The first form, Mental Storm, uses powerful mental energy to impact the minds of warriors, causing them to fall into a daze. The second form, called Illusionary Imprisonment Cage, uses powerful mental energy to form an illusionary imprisonment space to attack the enemy at the mental level. Compared to Mental Storm, Illusionary Imprisonment Cage is much more terrifying. After all, Mental Storm is just a simple mental impact, and its purpose is only to make the enemy lose consciousness for a short time. But Illusionary Imprisonment Cage directly attacks the enemy at the mental level, causing damage. It's just that the cultivation difficulty of Illusionary Imprisonment Cage is extremely high. One of them is that mental power must enter the 4th level and condense into substance. Secondly, its cultivation difficulty is also extremely high. Any slight mistake will lead to mental confusion and even become an idiot. But for Qin Chen, who had already cultivated Illusionary Imprisonment Cage in his previous life, it was not a difficult task. While taking pills to improve his mental power, he slowly cultivated the technique according to the Myriad God technique's mental method. Half a day later, a layer of shimmering cyan light suddenly emanated from Qin Chen's warm forehead between his eyebrows. This cyan light was like a hazy halo, flowing on his forehead. Upon closer inspection, it was like streams of agile air currents wandering around, hazy and mysterious. 2 more hours passed, and the cyan light at Qin Chen's brow became more and more intense, and finally it seemed as if a vertical eye had appeared, lying across Qin Chen's brow. Strands of mental power lingered around Qin Chen's body, and finally converged at his brow, forming a strong magnetic field. Time passed. 2 more hours passed. The cyan halo at the brow suddenly cracked open, as if a pair of cyan eyes suddenly opened. Whoosh! An invisible mental force suddenly shot out, enveloping the entire first pill pavilion. In an instant, the quiet night sky became even darker, falling into an endless abyss. All the warriors in the first pill pavilion, whether asleep or awake, seemed to touch a deep, cold pool-like eye, constantly extending in their vision, and then engulfing the entire world. Whoosh! The next moment, everyone, whether awake or asleep, seemed to be in an icy and deep space. As far as the eye could see, it was pitch black, and the silent panic was shocking. What is this place? I am. Everyone was in an independent space, their bodies icy cold, without a trace of security. Breathing seemed to be strangled, extremely difficult, the whole body stiff and cold, unable to move. Wanting to shout, but unable to make any sound. Just when they were terrified and desperate. Whoosh! The silent space disappeared. Everyone woke up together, panting heavily. Was that a nightmare? Zhu Sheng stretched out his hands, his face pale, his whole body sweating profusely, and a cold wind blew, making him feel icy cold. It seems that I have been too tired and too nervous these days. After a long time, he was relieved from this feeling and fell asleep again. The others also felt like they had had a dream, and each of them smiled wryly. The second form of the myriad god technique, illusionary imprisonment cage, is finally completed. Opening his eyes, Qin Chen smiled. He had just used it casually and had not actually attacked, otherwise Zhu Sheng and the others would not have just felt like they had had a dream. People with weaker mental power would even instantly become idiots or become vegetative in their sleep. With this secret technique, although Qin Chen's cultivation has not improved, his combat power and lethality have been greatly improved. There are some people ambushing outside. Are they spies from the Zhu family? Qin Chen smiled coldly. The casual release of the illusionary imprisonment cage also allowed him to sense many things. Qin Chen didn't take it to heart. Anyway, he was leaving tomorrow, and no matter how the Zhu family stared at him, they couldn't possibly keep an eye on him. Soon, dawn broke. The Heavenly Star Merchant Association's quarterly auction finally began. The auction house of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce was located in the most central and prosperous area of Wucheng. Qin Chen had brought Zhu Sheng and the others to the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce early in the morning. Hee, Master Qin, you've arrived. The staff of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce had been notified in advance and immediately stepped forward to greet Qin Chen and the others with a respectful attitude. Did you see that? This is Master Qin from the First Pill Pavilion. I heard that he is a Tier 3 peak alchemist. What Tier 3 alchemist? It is said that he is a Tier 4 alchemist. Otherwise, how could he refine Tier 4 pills? I heard that there seems to be a master behind him helping him with the refining. Otherwise, how could this person be a Tier 4 alchemist at such a young age? Yes, I also think that there must be a force behind him supporting him. I didn't expect the Zhu family to be so lucky to be able to rely on such an alchemy master. In a matter of days, Qin Chen had become one of the most famous people in Wucheng. Wherever he went, people would discuss him and point him out in secret. Facing the discussions of the crowd, Qin Chen naturally didn't take it to heart. Under the guidance of the staff of the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce, he stepped towards the interior of the auction house. Walking into the auction venue, it was not as lively as imagined, and even a little deserted. But it would be a big mistake to underestimate the Tianwu auction house because of this. The reason why there were so few people was because the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce's quarterly auction was of a very high standard. The entrance fee alone required 100,000 silver coins, excluding the vast majority of martial artists who were just there for the excitement. Those who could enter were all those with a certain amount of financial means. After all, the quarterly auction was different from the usual small-scale auctions. The treasures that appeared in it were all of boutique level, and would be the finale at any ordinary auction. Not long after, Qin Chen and Zhu Sheng and the others were taken to the VIP room area inside the auction hall. There were not many VIP boxes in the auction hall, and the higher the level, the fewer the number. There were only 4 5-star boxes, 10 4-star boxes, and dozens of 3-star boxes. Like the rank division of ancient sects, the higher you go, the fewer there are, located at the top of the pyramid. Moreover, the 5-star boxes were only available to the top forces of the Northwest 5 nations, and were usually closed directly. To enter, you had to be at least at the level of the 5 great powers or the Ghost Immortal sect. It was said that at a super auction held by the Tianwu Chamber of Commerce in Wucheng 3 years ago, the royal families of the Northwest 5 nations all participated. As for the Zhu family, the martial arts department, and the Song family, the 3 major families of Wucheng, they usually entered the 4-star VIP room, and would even be demoted to 3-star during super auctions. But today, the 5-star box, which had been closed for quite a long time, was opened once again. Gentlemen, this is our auction house's 5-star box. Please wait patiently, the auction will begin soon. The steward had a smile on his face and a respectful attitude. Whoosh! At this time, The other major forces in Wucheng also arrived in the VIP room area one after another, and gasped when they saw the 5-star box open. Among them, one person's face was flushed red, and his eyes were even more stern. Big brother, this person is Qin Chen. In the 4-star box area, this person secretly transmitted his voice, his eyes revealing a sinister look. It was Zhu Hongjun of the Zhu family. HMPH, an alchemist, and the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce actually arranged him in a 5-star VIP room. The Tianxing Chamber of Commerce really thinks highly of this person. Zhu Hongji's face was also very ugly. Their Zhu family had worked so hard in Wucheng for so many years, and they could only enter the 4-star VIP room. Under normal circumstances, being suppressed by top forces like the 5 great powers would be nothing to say, but being directly suppressed by this young man who had just arrived was quite unpleasant for Zhu Hongji. Lord Wu Lengfen, you should have seen the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce's attitude towards the first pill pavilion, right? Do you still think that what I said yesterday was nonsense? I dare to guarantee that the first pill pavilion and the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce will cooperate soon. At that time, the living space of our 2 major forces will definitely be greatly compressed. I believe Lord Wu doesn't want to see such a thing happen, right? Turning his head, Zhu Hongji looked at a thin man beside him. This man had a fierce look between his eyebrows, and his whole body was gloomy, like a Shura from hell, making people feel frightened at a glance. He was the lord of the martial arts department of Wucheng, a Xuan-level late-stage expert. Patriarch Zhu, please rest assured, I will naturally not break my promise regarding what I promised you yesterday. I have already set up a net around Wucheng. No matter when that kid leaves Wucheng, he will not be able to escape my grasp. The thin man smiled coldly. The 2 exchanged glances and then separated, as if they were having a normal conversation. This scene was seen by Qin Chen. Young Master Chen, one of these 2 is the head of the Zhu family, and the other is the lord of the martial arts department. Seeing Qin Chen looking over, Zhu Sheng immediately explained. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. When could he ever stand in such a position, looking down on the 2 behemoths of the Zhu family and the martial arts department? Qin Chen nodded, but sneered in his heart. His soul power was so terrifying. The subtle exchange between Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen was keenly captured by him. It seems that the Zhu family and the martial arts department have made up their minds to attack me. Expressionless, Qin Chen stepped into the VIP room. The entire VIP room was extremely luxurious, and could accommodate at least 20 people. And it was located above the auction hall, able to overlook the entire auction hall. As time passed, there were more and more people in the auction hall. The overall strength of Wucheng is really not to be underestimated. With a slight sweep of his spiritual power, almost all of the people in the entire auction hall were experts above the heaven level, with very few earth level experts. As for Xuan level experts, there were roughly nearly 100 people at a glance, with very few Xuan level late stage martial artists. This is. Qin Chen swept over a 3-star box below, and suddenly his heart skipped a beat. This was a man wearing a black cloak, with an extremely gloomy aura, as if he came from the Senluo hell. The cloak on his body seemed to be a true treasure, able to shield perception, making it impossible to see his face, but after Qin Chen's spiritual power swept over him, he clearly felt a palpitating gloomy power. Martial Emperor expert, definitely a tier 5 Martial Emperor or above expert. How could there be a Martial Emperor expert in this Wucheng? Suddenly standing up, Qin Chen was shocked. You must know that there were no tier 5 Martial Emperor experts appearing in the entire Northwest 5 nations. In this Wucheng, a tier 5 Martial Emperor suddenly appeared, and it was at such an auction. This was not in line with common sense at all. There was still about a week left until the finals of the 5 nations grand competition. It could be said that now all the major forces and well-known experts of the 5 nations had basically gone to the ancient southern capital. Such an expert should not appear here at all. In the 3-star VIP room, the cloaked figure seemed to notice something, slightly raising his head and glancing sideways. At the same time, a chilling force, following Qin Chen's mental power, rapidly searched over. Not good. Qin Chen hurriedly retracted his mental power and quickly erased the path of his mental trail. The other party lost his target, his brow furrowing slightly. Just now, it seemed someone was spying on me. Could it be a strong individual from this martial city? Interesting. They can actually evade my perception. The cloaked man looked up at the 4-star and even 5-star VIP rooms above, a cold smile forming at the corner of his lips. In the VIP room, Qin Chen's brow was tightly furrowed. Young Master Chen, what's wrong? Seeing Qin Chen suddenly stand up, Zhu Sheng couldn't help but ask in confusion. I'm fine. Shaking his head, Qin Chen said to Zhu Sheng, have the person in charge of the Heavenly Star auction house come see me. At this moment, after waiting for a long time, the auction officially began. On the auction stage at the front, a brown-haired old man in a black robe walked out, accompanied by a graceful beauty in a long dress, elegantly holding a silver plate. Ahem, this old man is Shi Zhen, the chief auctioneer of the Heavenly Star auction house. I believe everyone is already very familiar with me, so I won't introduce myself further. Everyone has been waiting for a long time and must already be fired up. In that case, let the quarterly auction of our Heavenly Star auction house officially begin. Now, please everyone, observe the first auction item. The black-robed old man Shi Zhen had a kind face and an amiable voice. With just a few words, he had already stirred up the atmosphere of the scene. The graceful beauty beside him lifted the silk cloth, and a piece of jade, entirely blue and green, was immediately revealed on the silver plate. A chilling coldness quietly emanated from the auction stage. Frost Charm Jade, produced in the extremely cold Ice Valley in the northwest, contains astonishing cold energy, generally worth 100,000 silver coins. However, what is being sold now is not the Frost Charm Jade itself, but a small pool of azure liquid sealed inside the Frost Charm Jade. Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid, from the deepest part of Ice Valley, possesses the ability to improve physique, allowing any martial artist below the profound level to undergo physical transformation and improve by one small level. Most miraculously, in addition to martial artists with a cold attribute physique, it also has a certain boosting power for martial artists of other attributes, allowing them to increase a certain degree of resistance to ice attribute attacks. The black-robed old man Shi Zhen introduced. Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid comes from Ice Valley. Ice Valley is an extremely dangerous relic. Even profound-level martial artists entering it will face life-threatening dangers and often perish. Therefore, obtaining a bottle of Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid is extremely difficult. The first auction item immediately stirred up a wave in the venue. Being able to unconditionally raise the body of any martial artist below the profound level who cultivates the ice attribute by one level is definitely an extremely rare treasure. It must be known that the improvement of a martial artist's physique is extremely difficult, and any level increase requires a lot of effort. What's more, even if it is not a martial artist with the ice attribute, Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid can also give them greater resistance to ice-type attribute attacks. Such a treasure is enough to make the vast majority of people tempted. Qin Chen also nodded secretly. This Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid is similar to the Spiritual Marrow Liquid in the Blood Spirit Pool, but its effect is much worse than the Spiritual Marrow Liquid. After all, this Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid only improves the martial artist's physique, while the Spiritual Marrow Liquid changes the martial artist's physical talent. These are two completely different concepts. If a martial artist's talent is changed, the improvement may not only be a level of physique, including potential and other aspects, it will also be greatly improved. The starting price for Ice Marrow Tempering Liquid is 200,000 silver coins, with each increment not less than 10,000. The black-robed old man smiled slightly. As soon as the voice fell, someone immediately began to frantically increase the price. I bid 230,000. 250,000. 280,000. Bidding voices rose one after another. This kind of national-level treasure is often the most sought after. And at this moment, the steward who had previously received Qin Chen came to the VIP room again. Master Qin, you were looking for me. The other party bowed slightly, his attitude respectful. President Duan had already instructed him to receive Qin Chen with the highest standards. Who is in this number 3 VIP room? Qin Chen pointed to the VIP room in front. This. The steward hesitated. Although President Duan had instructed him to satisfy the other party as much as possible no matter what Qin Chen requested, Qin Chen's request had already touched the bottom line of the Heavenly Star auction house. Any auction house must put the customer's information first. After all, the customer's reputation is the most important thing, and this is the foundation of the auction house. If you can't make the decision, call your President Duan over here. Qin Chen knew that a steward might not be able to make the decision. Please wait a moment, Master Qin. The steward immediately retreated. He couldn't rashly agree to this kind of thing. A moment later, ha ha ha, Master Qin, have you been well? Duan Lingtian walked in with a smile. President. The steward was behind Duan Lingtian, and wanted to say something, but Duan Lingtian waved his hand. You may step down. I heard that Master Qin wants to know the origin of the guest in VIP room 49. After the steward left, Duan Lingtian said with a wry smile, Master Qin, you should know that as the leading chamber of commerce in the Northwest 5 nations, the biggest tenet of our Heavenly Star Chamber of Commerce is credibility. Master Qin, you like this? From today onwards, my first pill pavilion will start cooperating with your Heavenly Star Chamber of Commerce, supplying one type of Tier 3 pills every month, with a quantity of 10 bottles. If it is a Tier 4 pill, it will be once a year. Qin Chen directly interrupted Duan Lingtian's words and said without hesitation. Master Qin, are you agreeing to cooperate with my first pill pavilion? Duan Lingtian was stunned. Isn't this what you wanted? Qin Chen said coldly, because I am about to leave Marshall City, the business between the first pill pavilion and me will be completed by the Zhu family as an intermediary in the future. As for contact, you can let the Zhu family directly connect with Xiao Ya, the pavilion master of the Darky Kingdom Pill Pavilion, and all the pills will also be obtained from the Darky Kingdom Pill Pavilion. Of course, the first month's 10 bottles of pills, I can give you now. What I can guarantee is that each Tier 3 pill is an extremely rare Tier 3 peak pill on the market, at least at the level of a Chongshuan pill. After Qin Chen finished speaking, he directly took out 11 bottles of pills from his body. This is. Receiving the medicine bottle, Duan Lingtian opened the stopper, directly smelled it, and his expression immediately became extremely shocked. Chongshuan pill, Huolmai pill, Exingshan pill, and also a Tier 4 Zhenli pill. Hiss. As the president of the Heavenly Star Chamber of Commerce, Duan Lingtian's understanding of pills was naturally extremely terrifying. At a glance, he could distinguish that each of the 10 bottles of pills that Qin Chen took out was the best of the Tier 3 pills, a Tier 3 peak level pill. And the effects of each pill are completely different, and can cover almost the vast majority of martial artists on the market. And although the 4th grade pills were extremely ordinary true energy pills, because there were very few 4th grade alchemists in the Northwest 5 nations, every 4th grade pill could be called a treasure, and its value was far above that of 3rd grade pills. With these 11 bottles of pills, the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce would be fully capable of holding a large-scale auction in the major powers of the Northwest. It could be said that even someone like Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be shocked by the scene before him. So many pills, worth a fortune, were brought out so easily. Qin Chen's generosity was truly astonishing. Duan Lingtian's awe of Qin Chen grew even stronger. Now, can you tell me? Qin Chen's tone was icy cold. For some reason, his eyelids twitched, and he had a faint feeling that the mysterious cloaked man might have some connection to him. Ha ha ha. Duan Lingtian's face was full of smiles, and his attitude immediately became extremely warm, his face beaming. Since Master Qin has already reached a cooperation with the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce, then we are considered partners, not outsiders. The information that Master Qin wants to know, I can naturally give it to you. Master Qin, the guest in VIP room number 30, I don't actually know him, and this person is not a martial artist from my martial city. He is a foreign martial artist. However, he had a transaction with our Tianxing Chamber of Commerce. The blood spirit fire that Master Qin wants to know about was brought out by this person for consignment. What? The blood spirit fire was brought out by him for consignment. Qin Chen's brow furrowed instantly. He already felt very uncomfortable in his heart, And now this uncomfortable feeling became even more obvious, because although he had just sensed a gloomy aura from the other party, he also faintly felt a fiery aura. Treasures like demon fire are not only needed by alchemists. If an alchemist obtains demon fire, their alchemy ability will be greatly improved, but refiners, formation masters, and so on can also refine it. Even martial artists can refine demon fire, especially those who practice fire-based techniques. Once they refine demon fire, their cultivation can even be greatly improved. And this man in black was clearly practicing fire-based techniques. Why would he be willing to put the blood spirit fire up for auction? Cold sweat instantly broke out on Qin Chen's back. If the other party was just a heaven-level martial artist, it wouldn't be surprising to auction the blood spirit fire. After all, according to what Duan Lingtian said before, the level of the blood spirit fire was not low. If the other party couldn't refine it themselves, it would be reasonable to put it up for auction. Even if the other party was a profound-level martial artist, it would be barely understandable. But now, the other party was clearly a martial sect above the 5th rank, who could refine this blood spirit fire himself. Why would he bring it to this auction house to auction it? Was he very short of money? Seeing Qin Chen's ugly face, Duan Lingtian asked in confusion, Master Qin, could it be that you know this person? Qin Chen shook his head and said, I don't know him. I just saw him by chance and felt that the aura on his body was a bit strange. That person's cultivation doesn't seem weak. I don't know why he would auction this blood spirit fire instead of refining it himself. Duan Lingtian smiled and said, Master Qin, you're thinking too much. Although that person's cultivation is not weak, he has only just entered the profound level. Maybe he can't refine it himself. However, I did hear a strange thing. A month ago, in a large auction house in the Great Liang Kingdom, someone seemed to have sold this kind of mysterious blood spirit fire as well. What? It was also auctioned in the Great Liang Kingdom. Qin Chen was shocked. Actually, this news is not necessarily certain. I also deliberately investigated it after learning that Master Qin was quite interested in this blood spirit fire, but it was just hearsay and not confirmed news. But at this time, Qin Chen's heart had completely sunk. He was sure that the blood spirit fire auctioned in the Great Liang Kingdom before was definitely the same blood spirit fire that was about to be auctioned today. Don't ask him why he knew, he just had that feeling. But since the other party had clearly auctioned it before, why would it be auctioned again in this martial city? Qin Chen immediately sensed a conspiracy. If it weren't for the fact that the 100 Ghosts curse required a strange fire to be used, Qin Chen would definitely give up the auction of this blood spirit fire at the first moment. But now, in the face of the hope of unlock the 100 Ghosts curse, he must not do so. No matter who this person is, if this blood spirit fire can really unlock solution 100 Ghosts curse, then I must have it. As for what conspiracy the other party has, let it come. Having made up his mind, Qin Chen smiled coldly in his heart. Duan Lingtian then said, Master Qin, I'll take these pills away first. As for the reward, I need high-level materials, the higher the level, the better, as a prepayment. As for the rest, you can directly transfer the auction proceeds to my silver card after the auction ends. Duan Lingtian took a long breath and said, Master Qin, don't worry, I will immediately bring over the list of all the high-level materials currently in our Tianxing Chamber of Commerce's warehouse. If Qin Chen wanted the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce to prepay all the fees at once, with so many pills, the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce might not be able to come up with it in a short time. Before long, Duan Lingtian personally brought out the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce's material list. It must be said that the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce, as the top force in Martial City and the leading chamber of commerce in the Northwest Five Nations, was indeed amazingly wealthy, with an extremely large number of various high-level spiritual herbs, and even 2 types of 5th-level materials. However, many of these materials were of no use to Qin Chen at all. On the other hand, the 5th-level materials were of some value to Qin Chen, so he directly marked them. Receiving Qin Chen's order, Duan Lingtian was so heartbroken that he was about to vomit blood. The materials selected by Qin Chen were all the treasures of the Tianxing Chamber of Commerce, and could be said to be the most precious treasures. But he still endured the pain and personally handed the materials to Qin Chen. Materials were, after all, just materials. Even if they were precious, they could not be directly used. Therefore, for the auction house, they could only be used as the finale and would not generate much profit. But once they cooperated with Qin Chen, the profits would be almost endless. Duan Lingtian understood this relationship very well. During the exchange between the two parties, the previous ice marrow tempering liquid had already been bought for a price of 450,000. Next, the second and third auction items were all rare treasures. Although there was no surprise like the ice marrow tempering liquid, they were at least third level or higher treasures, and many had reached the fourth level. The next auction item that we are going to auction should be of interest to everyone. This item is often the most expensive of its kind. The auction house immediately stirred up a wave. Treasures of the same rank are often numerous, such as weapons, array discs, and pills. However, the most expensive items are usually limited to a few types, cultivation methods, breakthrough pills, or top-tier defensive armor. This item is a piece of armor called the Heavenly Floor Armor. As expected, the old man began to explain as soon as the crowd had finished guessing. This armor was obtained by our Heavenly Star Commerce from a relic site. It is of extremely high grade, surpassing the level of what our Northwest 5 nations possess. It is a 5th grade armor. When Qin Chen heard the words, 5th grade armor, he was immediately shocked. Wu City actually had a 5th grade armor, and they were putting it up for auction. Qin Chen was naturally aware of the value of armor, which was the highest among all kinds of treasures. A weapon of the same quality might only sell for 10,000 silver coins, but armor could fetch at least 20 to 30,000. This was because martial artists walked on the edge of life and death. A moment of carelessness could lead to their demise. Therefore, a powerful armor could greatly enhance a martial artist's safety, leading to a scramble for it. However, in the Northwest 5 nations, the most powerful weapon refiners were only 4th grade, and their numbers were very small. In addition, the difficulty of refining armor and the rarity of materials were often higher than that of weapons, which also led to a very limited supply of 4th grade armor in the Northwest 5 nations. But now, the Heavenly Star Commerce was actually putting up a 5th grade armor for auction. If such an armor was obtained by a profound level martial artist, wouldn't they be invincible and immediately rise to the ranks of the top experts in the Northwest 5 nations? Everyone present was also shocked. For a time, the clamor was incessant and impossible to stop. The black-robed old man seemed to have anticipated the reaction of the crowd. He coughed and continued, "Of course, although this heavenly floor armor is a 5th grade armor, it has some damaged and incomplete parts due to certain reasons. Its defensive capabilities have been greatly reduced, so it can no longer be considered a 5th grade armor. In terms of defense, it is equivalent to ordinary 4th grade armor." Hearing this, Qin Chen breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself that it was normal. If an undamaged 5th grade armor was put up for auction, it would indeed be shocking. But even if it was damaged, its attraction was still extremely amazing. Sure enough, after the black-robed old man finished speaking, the commotion below clearly quieted down a lot, but there was still some agitation. It could be seen that everyone wanted to obtain this damaged 5th grade armor. The black-robed old man did not continue to introduce it. He simply raised his hand, and a maid beside him opened the tray, revealing a piece of pitch-black armor. This armor looked very ordinary. Having experienced the ravages of time, it had suffered a lot of damage. Many of the array patterns on it were also broken, so its effectiveness was greatly reduced. It may have even experienced a fierce battle, as there was a large gash on it. However, this still could not stop the fiery gazes of the people. Although they knew that this armor was damaged, when everyone's perception was transmitted to it, they clearly felt a strong aura, which was completely different from ordinary armor. Qin Chen's perception also swept over the heavenly floor armor, and he immediately felt that it was attached to a cold aura, probing the perception of every martial artist who scanned it. "It's that cloaked man." Startled, Qin Chen pretended to be nonchalant. After a slight sweep of his perception, he quietly retreated. The cold aura probed Qin Chen twice and found nothing unusual, continuing to linger on the armor, exploring other perceptions. "That cloaked man must have noticed that I was spying on him," Qin Chen thought, frowning in contemplation. This armor has no starting price. The highest bidder wins. Let the bidding begin, the black-robed old man said after letting everyone observe the heavenly floor armor. 500,000 silver coins, someone immediately bid. 550,000. 600,000. Various bids rose and fell in an instant. It should be known that 4th grade armor was not common, let alone an armor that was originally 5th grade. In terms of materials, it exceeded ordinary 4th grade armor, immediately attracting countless people to chase after it. Qin Chen did not have defensive armor. Having cultivated the undying holy body, he originally did not need defensive armor, but after discovering this cloaked man, Qin Chen felt a strong sense of crisis. In his previous life, 5th-level martial ancestors were nothing to him, but now, he was only at the late stage of the heaven realm. Once he was targeted by the other party, it would be extremely dangerous. At this time, any defensive treasure could give him a better chance of survival. This armor should be forged from heavenly sinking sand mixed with star iron. At the same time, the forging process is very complicated. The cracks on its surface have suffered a powerful impact, making it almost impossible to repair in a short period of time. However, the defensive array patterns on it are only broken at the joints, and the structure has not been completely destroyed, making it very likely to be repaired. Qin Chen pondered silently. With his weapon refining skills, as long as he auctioned off this heavenly floor armor, he would be fully capable of repairing the damaged array patterns on the armor in a short period of time. In this way, although he could not restore the armor to its peak state, it was still possible to increase its defensive power from ordinary 4th grade to the peak of 4th grade. At that time, his defense would at least double. I must auction off this heavenly floor armor. Qin Chen regained his thoughts and focused his attention on the auction stage. In just a moment, the price of the heavenly floor armor had soared to more than 900,000 silver coins. Qin Chen knew that too many martial artists coveted this armor. A low price would not be enough to win it. Breaking 1 million was only a matter of minutes. Some real experts had not even bid yet. He said directly, 1,500,000. What? Who bid 1,500,000? Going directly from 950,000 to 1,500,000 is too exaggerated, isn't it? The crowd was in an uproar, and they all looked up to where the sound came from. When they saw that the price came from the top-tier 5-star VIP room, they were all stunned and puzzled. The Heavenly Star Commerce's 5-star VIP rooms were usually closed directly. They were only opened during the ultra-large auctions held at least once a year. Moreover, those who could enter them were the top forces in the Northwest 5 nations. When did a top force from the Northwest 5 nations come to Wu City? But before, someone had seen Qin Chen enter the 5-star box, and they immediately said it out loud. The crowd suddenly realized and twitched at the corners of their mouths. So it's Grandmaster Qin from the First Pill Pavilion. No wonder he's so generous. He bid 1,500,000 silver coins as soon as he opened his mouth. How much money has the First Pill Pavilion earned in Wu City these days? Although they didn't know exactly, it was definitely an astronomical figure. Other people directly bidding 1,500,000 might have been surprising, but since it was the First Pill Pavilion, it was too normal. This price immediately silenced most people. 1,500,000 silver coins was indeed not a low price. Unless it was a large force that had been operating in Wu City for at least several decades or hundreds of years, ordinary people would not be able to afford it. For a moment, the arena was strangely silent. In the 4-star box below, Zhu Hongjun's face was gloomy as he said to Zhu Hongji in a deep voice, "Brother, this kid actually wants to bid for this heavenly remnant armor. He must be afraid of us attacking him, so he's buying it for self-defense. What should we do now? This heavenly remnant armor must not be obtained by this kid." Zhu Hongji's voice was icy. The scene was only silent for a moment before a sinister voice said, 1.6 million. It's Zhu Hongji, the head of the Zhu family. The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. As one of the 4 major forces in Wucheng, many people naturally recognized him. Moreover, there were only a few forces that could enter the 4-star box, so how could the crowd not recognize him? Thinking of the conflict between the First Pill Pavilion and Willow Pavilion, the crowd was immediately excited. It looks like there's a good show to watch. Qin Chen smiled. He offered 1.5 million, but he didn't really think that this amount of money would be enough to buy the Heavenly Remnant armor. After all, a 5th-tier armor wasn't something you could easily come across. Even a Xuan-level late-stage peak martial artist wouldn't be unmoved. 2 million. Without hesitation, Qin Chen added another 400,000 to the base price of 1.6 million. Adding in increments of 100,000 was not his style. Wow. He actually added 400,000 directly. Generous. Truly generous. Almost everyone turned the gaze or perception towards Qin Chen's box. Although his box was the most advanced box with a powerful restriction on the outside, this didn't stop the excitement of the martial artists present and their urge to catch a glimpse of Qin Chen's true face. Although the restrictions of the 5-star box of the Tianwu Merchant Guild were powerful, it wasn't to say they were unbreakable. Qin Chen immediately felt a cold aura sweep across his body. His heart sank, and he immediately knew that it was the cloaked man in VIP room number 30. The fact that the other party could silently penetrate the restrictions of the 5-star box showed that their mental strength was also extremely terrifying. In order not to attract the other party's attention, Qin Chen pretended not to notice the other party's prying and put on a smug look. After the cold aura swept back and forth a few times, it quickly retreated. What is this person's purpose? Qin Chen's heart sank, unable to understand. 2,100,000. Another cold voice came, this time from another box. It's Song Jie, the head of the Song family. It seems that the head of the Song family is also determined to get this Heavenly Remnant armor. 2,200,000. Another stern voice sounded. Wu Lengfen, the head of the martial cultivation manor. At this time, everyone was speechless. Apart from the Tianwu Merchant Guild, the other 3 major forces had all joined the bidding. This was going to be a fight. 2,300,000. 2,350,000. 2,400,000. The Song family, the martial cultivation manor, and the Zhu family continued to raise the price. They were all very clear that the reason why the major forces in Wucheng could coexist peacefully was because the difference in strength between them wasn't very large. But once this Heavenly Remnant armor was obtained by one of the 3 major forces, the strength of the other party's top experts would definitely surpass one of the parties present. In this way, the balance between them would be broken. Although it wouldn't cause an impact on the overall situation, it would create a difference in strength within a small range. This was something they didn't want to see. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. 3 million. Just when everyone was shocked, Qin Chen quoted again, directly raising the price to 3 million. The arena fell silent again, and everyone turned their heads in shock to look at Qin Chen. Was he kidding? He actually raised the price to 3 million all at once. Did this guy have a problem with his brain? Everyone was speechless. Others added in increments of 50,000 or 100,000. You, on the other hand, added hundreds of thousands at a time. You're not playing by the rules at all. The Zhu family and others were also dumbfounded. This guy was too ruthless. Brother, are we still adding to the price? Seeing that his brother wasn't speaking, Zhu Hongjin couldn't help but become anxious and reminded him, if we don't bid, it'll be bought by him. Add to the price. How can you let me add to the price? Do you know how much wealth that guy has plundered in Wucheng these days? Zhu Hongji glared at Zhu Hongjin. Zhu Hongjin stopped talking. Although he didn't know exactly how much wealth Qin Chen had plundered, he thought that it must be several million. From this, it could be seen that the other party didn't lack money at all. Our Zhu family has a large business and many expenses. The wealth we can take out can't be compared to this kid. Blindly increasing the price will only drag our Zhu family down. But we can't just watch him buy the Heavenly Remnant armor, right? Zhu Hongjin couldn't accept the fact that the Heavenly Remnant armor was bought by Qin Chen. Even if he buys it, so what? With that kid's cultivation, even if he obtains the heavenly remnant armor, he still can't escape the hands of our two major forces. But if such an armor is obtained by the Song family, then it'll be troublesome. So as long as the Song family doesn't make a move, we won't make a move either. Semicolon. Zhu Hongji pondered for a moment and then said, moreover, everyone can see that that kid is very likely to have joined forces with the Tianxing Merchant Guild. If the Tianxing Merchant Guild and him work together to set up a trap, the purpose is to drag our three major families into the water. If our three major families bid at all costs, wouldn't we be falling for their trap? Semicolon. On the other side, the Song family and the martial cultivation manor had the same thoughts as Zhu Hongji. It definitely wasn't a good idea for the three of them to bid like this. Now that there was Qin Chen, a bird willing to stick his head out, they were relieved. At least there was a way out. Otherwise, if they fought hard, the Tianxing Merchant Guild would benefit. 3 million, is there anyone who will offer a higher price? Semicolon. As a result, the scene fell into a strange silence. Since no one is bidding, 3 million once, 3 million twice, 3 million 3 times, sold. Semicolon. With a strike of the hammer, the Xuan-robed elder Shi Zhen shouted loudly. After the servant girl took the heavenly remnant armor down, the Xuan-robed elder continued, let's look at the next auction item. Semicolon. In Qin Chen's box. Before long, the Tianxing Merchant Guild sent someone to deliver the heavenly remnant armor. President Duan said that Master Qin doesn't need to pay for this heavenly remnant armor. It can be deducted from the subsequent profits. After saying this respectfully, the steward who delivered the heavenly remnant armor retreated. Quietly setting up some restrictions around to prevent others' perception from penetrating, Qin Chen began to examine the heavenly remnant armor in his hand. As he expected, although the entire armor was relatively damaged and difficult to repair in appearance, the array patterns on it were not very complicated and had not been completely destroyed. With his current cultivation, he could completely carry out some repairs. Taking out an array pattern pen from his body, Qin Chen did not hesitate to repair it in the box. He planned to leave Wucheng as soon as he auctioned off the blood spirit fire. Before that, it was obviously better to improve his strength as much as possible. At this moment, the auction on the stage became increasingly heated. All kinds of treasures emerged one after another, attracting continuous bidding from the crowd. Qin Chen, however, was completely immersed in the restoration of the heavenly remnant armor. The age of this heavenly remnant armor was clearly quite ancient, and the array patterns on it had completely different distinctions from the modern array pattern system, belonging to the category of ancient array techniques. Therefore, Qin Chen's restoration was extremely slow. However, under Qin Chen's careful restoration, after about half an hour, some of the broken array patterns on the heavenly remnant armor had been completely connected by Qin Chen. Buzz! An astonishing aura immediately emanated out. If Qin Chen hadn't already set up a restriction in the private room, this mental fluctuation would definitely have been sensed by people outside. Young Master Chen, what was that just now? Although the people outside hadn't sensed it, Zhu Sheng and the others looked at the armor in Qin Chen's hand in shock, dumbfounded. They had all seen that when this heavenly remnant armor was sent over, it was pitch black and plain to the extreme. But now, although it was still pitch black, it actually had mysterious texture flowing on it, making people feel a clear difference. Don't worry about it, I just simply repaired this heavenly remnant armor a bit. Qin Chen injected his true energy into the heavenly remnant armor, and the entire armor immediately covered Qin Chen's body, concealing him completely. Then, he added a martial robe on the outside, making it impossible to see any clues from the outside. Repaired it a bit. Zhu Sheng and the others' eyeballs were about to fall to the ground. Fortunately, they had long been accustomed to Qin Chen's style, so they weren't completely dumbfounded. Next, we are going to auction one of the finale items of this auction. In terms of value, it is no less than the previous heavenly remnant armor. At this time, the Xuan-robed old man Shi Zhen on the stage, having just auctioned off a 4th-tier Xuan weapon, said with a smile. The entire venue immediately quieted down, and at the same time, a jade box appeared in his hand. Although Qin Chen's mind was immersed in the heavenly remnant armor, he also diverted some of his attention, constantly paying attention to the changes on the stage. As soon as this jade box was taken out, even before Shi Zhen spoke, Qin Chen's heart trembled. He was certain that this was the blood spirit fire. Even though the blood spirit fire was imprisoned by the restriction in the jade box, Qin Chen could still feel that kind of burning aura. That unique feeling of flame was absolutely indescribable. The Xuan-robed old man picked up the jade box and said extremely solemnly, "The things inside are of great benefit to alchemists, weapon refiners, other professions, and even martial artists, especially fire attribute martial artists." As the old man spoke, he suddenly opened the jade box. A strong flame aura instantly permeated the entire auction hall, forming a huge wave of heat. In that jade box, a blue flame slowly rose. The flame was lotus-shaped, incomparably charming, and radiated an incomparably brilliant light. At this moment, regardless of the level of the martial artist, at this moment, a trace of palpitations arose in everyone's heart, as if in front of this flame, they were like ants, and seemed to be burned to ashes in an instant. However, upon careful perception, it was discovered that the aura of this flame did not seem to be so terrifying. That kind of diametrically opposed strong illusion made people extremely uncomfortable. It is an extremely terrifying blood spirit fire. The Xuan-robed old man slowly said, "After the appraisal of our Qianxing Merchant Association, the name of this demon fire has not yet been determined, but what can be determined is that it is a kind of blood spirit fire, and its grade is at least above the 4th rank." The crowd immediately stirred up. A 4th-tier blood spirit fire was a huge attraction to almost all the martial artists present. The only thing to worry about was whether they would be able to absorb it after auctioning it off. After all, not everyone can casually refine a 4th-tier blood spirit fire. The process of refining a strange fire is often very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will be backlashed by the strange fire and burned to ashes. While the old man was speaking, the blue lotus flame on the stage suddenly dimmed, and the previous terrifying aura disappeared in an instant, as if it were a candle in the wind, about to go out at any time. What's going on? Why did it suddenly become so weak? The Xuan-robed old man smiled bitterly. "I think everyone should have felt the special nature of this strange fire. This fire is very peculiar. Its aura is constantly changing every moment. When it is weak, it is not even as good as a 1st-tier demon fire, but when it is strong, even a 4th-tier Xuan-level martial artist will feel palpitation and cannot get close. We have consulted a large number of books and classics, but have not been able to find such a flame. But what is undeniable is that this fire is definitely a strange fire above the 4th rank, otherwise it would be impossible to possess such a terrifying aura. At the same time, since this item is deposited in our Qianxing Merchant Association for auction by others, according to the other party's requirements, this item has no reserve price, and there is no limit to the amount of the price increase. The highest bidder wins. Now. Auction begins." The old man gave a low shout, quietly waiting for the opening price. With a boom, a great uproar had already been set off under the stage at this time. The bottom was completely boiling. No one thought that such a magical strange fire would appear at the auction. If this flame was really a strange fire above the 4th rank, then it would be too amazing. You must know that ordinary people cannot refine a 4th-tier strange fire at all. If you want to refine a 4th-tier strange fire, you must at least be a 4th-tier Xuan-level martial artist. However, the strange fire in front of him was very magical. Although its aura would continue to change, becoming extremely weak when it was weak, it also meant that any martial artist could refine it. Even if the strange fire was changing, as long as this strange fire was refined, it would definitely be beneficial and harmless, and it would greatly improve one's strength. After all, everyone felt how terrifying the flame aura was when this strange fire became stronger just now. I am afraid that a 4th-tier Xuan-level martial artist could be easily incinerated. Qin Chen's mind also boomed, and his body even trembled a little. After he saw the flame in Shi Zhen's hand, he couldn't help but murmur, "Azure Lotus Demon Fire, could this be the legendary Azure Lotus Demon Fire?" When he was in the martial domain in his previous life, he had seen a book that said that there was a kind of Azure Lotus Demon Fire in the world, which was very special. It was transformed from a mysterious azure lotus in the world. This azure lotus demon fire was very weak when it was first born, even worse than some ordinary demon fires and strange fires. However, it can continue to grow. When it grows to the end, it is even more terrifying than the legendary heavenly fire. This is a flame with infinite potential. 3 million. While the whole place was noisy, Qin Chen was the first to speak, directly quoting a high price of 3 million. Wow! The entire scene instantly burst into an uproar. At this moment, Qin Chen couldn't care less about why others were auctioning off this flame, nor whether this flame was actually the azure lotus demonic flame. He only had one thought in his mind, which was to win this flame at the auction. He had a feeling that this azure lotus blood spirit flame could definitely dispel his 100 ghost curse. 3 million. As soon as Qin Chen's bid was announced, everyone in the audience was dumbfounded, one by one almost stunned. Was this Master Qin Chen really here to bid, or to cause trouble? A blood spirit flame whose origin was unknown, even if it was above the 4th rank, there was no need to open with a high price of 3 million on the first bid, right? You must know that this was the first bid, and it was a bid without a reserve price. 3 million, in the entire auction hall, apart from a few large families, no one else could afford to bid. Originally, many martial artists who were interested in this blood spirit flame and were preparing to bid, were about to go crazy, feeling so depressed that they were about to vomit blood. What could they do when they encountered such a guy who didn't play by the rules and was so rich? Apart from silently watching the other party bid, all that remained was to silently watch the other party bid. 3,100,000. Just as the arena was silent, a cold snort sounded, and Zhu Hongji spoke coldly from the 4th-star VIP room. He knew very well that Qin Chen was originally a pharmacist, and he must be extremely eager for this blood spirit flame. Although he also felt that the price of 3 million was already very high, in his heart, he didn't want Qin Chen to get it so easily. The Zhu family is going against Master Qin Chen. Is there even a need to say that? The Lu pavilion that Master Qin Chen destroyed before originally had inextricable connections with the Zhu family. The Zhu family even came to demand justice for this, but was directly kicked out by Master Qin Chen, losing all face. It would be strange if the Zhu family didn't hate him, but they just haven't been able to find an opportunity. It seems that the Zhu family doesn't want Master Qin Chen to obtain this mysterious strange flame, so they are going to snipe him. 4 million. Faced with the Zhu family's provocation, Qin Chen's expression was indifferent. He didn't take it to heart at all, but directly quoted the price again, and increased it by 1 million at once. Wow! The crowd was about to go crazy. The entire auction hall almost had its roof blown off by the noise. What did they hear? 4 million. Has this Master Qin Chen ever participated in an auction before? When auctioning items, how can he bid like this? Others increase the price by 100,000 at a time, which is already considered very generous. He's good. He increases it by 1 million directly. This is 1 million. A small family like the Zhu family might not even have 1 million if they sold everything. 4,100,000. Zhu Hongji gritted his teeth and snorted coldly again, adding another 100,000 to Qin Chen's base price. At this price, even Zhu Hongji had to be careful and uneasy in his heart. Once their Zhu family took out more than 4 million silver coins, all the industrial chains would have insufficient funds, causing a huge impact. But if Qin Chen auctioned it off so easily, where would the Zhu family's face go? If this was indeed a heaven-defying blood spirit flame, that would be fine, and they could barely break even, but if it was just a rare blood spirit flame, and it didn't improve people's strength much, wouldn't he be stuck with it? At that time, the entire Zhu family would face difficulties, and might even decline. What made Zhu Hongji most vigilant was that the First Pill Pavilion and the Heavenly Star Merchant Association seemed to have joined forces. He wondered if this was a scheme made by the Heavenly Star Merchant Association. No one knows what this flame is. Your Excellency is rich and generous, and you actually bid 5 million at once. Hee. I heard that the 5-star VIP rooms of the Heavenly Star Merchant Association are not accessible to forces other than the 5 powerful countries. Your Excellency, a newly opened First Pill Pavilion, has no qualifications to sit in the 5-star VIP room. Maybe there is some kind of scheme in this. Although Zhu Hongji didn't say it explicitly, the meaning was already very clear, saying that this strange flame was likely a scheme made by Qin Chen and the Heavenly Star Merchant Association. The crowd immediately stirred. Indeed, although Qin Chen's first pill pavilion caused an earthquake-like sensation in Wucheng, according to reason, it was not yet qualified to directly enter the 5-star VIP room. In addition, his first bid was 3 million, which made people couldn't help but suspect this. If you can't afford it, stop whining and changing the subject. Hey, so much for the dignified head of the Zhu family. You're nothing special. With a cold laugh, Qin Chen was too lazy to say anything more. After this commotion, no one dared to bid against Qin Chen. Whether he was colluding with the Tianxing Merchant Guild or not, this guy was a madman. Competing with him would only lead to trouble. They didn't want to get themselves caught in something that would outweigh the benefits. Alright, this friend has bid 5 million silver coins. Are there any higher offers? The Xuanpao elder scanned the audience. He knew this price was already extremely high, but he still habitually asked. As expected, there wasn't a single sound in the venue. 5 million once, 5 million twice, 5 million 3 times, good. Congratulations to this friend for successfully bidding for this strange fire at the price of 5 million. Shi Zhen knocked firmly, locking in the price. Master Qin, this is the blood spirit fire you bid for. 5 million silver coins. You really are. Guild leader Duan Lingtian personally delivered the blood spirit fire, handing the jade box to Qin Chen while sighing. 5 million silver coins, this wasn't a small sum. Even the Tianxing Merchant Guild couldn't just take it out like that, but Qin Chen directly bid and won. It was truly a grand gesture. Taking the jade box, Qin Chen directly opened it. Buzz. A dazzling cyan lotus bloomed before Qin Chen, emitting a terrifying aura. As expected, it's a top-tier strange fire. Although he didn't know if it was the cyan lotus demonic fire, the aura on this strange fire was extremely terrifying, completely satisfying his needs. Nodding, Qin Chen directly put away the blood spirit fire, placing it into his storage ring, and then suddenly stood up. Guild leader Duan, I need to leave Wucheng now. Please send someone to take me out immediately. As for the 5 million silver coins. What? Master Qin, you're leaving now. Duan Lingtian was stunned, and Zhu Sheng and the others beside him were also taken aback. Although he didn't understand why Qin Chen was in such a hurry to leave, Duan Lingtian still nodded and said, all right, we have a passage at the back of the Tianxing Merchant Guild. I'll personally take you out. As for the 5 million silver coins, let's just leave it for now. Those 110 medicinal pills are worth far more than that price. Let the Tianxing Merchant Guild pay for this blood spirit fire for you. Qin Chen nodded, not saying anything more. Young Master Chen, let's go with you too. Yes. Wherever you go, we'll go with you. At this time, Zhu Sheng and the others said from the side. During this time, they had long become accustomed to working under Qin Chen. Qin Chen's sudden departure left them at a loss. Qin Chen obviously couldn't take them away. After all, this time, he himself couldn't guarantee that he could leave safely. If he took Zhu Sheng and the others, it would be even harder to leave. You stay in Wucheng. With the Tianxing Merchant Guild protecting you, there shouldn't be any problems. Moreover, the cooperation between the Tianxing Merchant Guild and me will still need you in the future. However, what you need to know is that relying on external forces is destined to prevent you from becoming a true powerhouse. The medicinal pills I gave you are enough for you to break through to the Xuan level during this time. Whether you can seize this opportunity depends on yourselves. Qin Chen couldn't help Zhu Sheng and the others forever, but he also pointed out a path for them and arranged a way out. As for what would happen to them in the future, it wasn't something he could decide. Next, under the leadership of Duan Lingtian, Qin Chen left the auction venue through the back door of the auction house. Big brother, according to our informant in the Tianxing Merchant Guild, Qin Chen of the First Pill Pavilion just left the auction venue under the leadership of Duan Lingtian, seemingly heading outside the city. In the Zhu family's VIP room, a Zhu family martial artist quietly entered and said a few words to Zhu Hongjin, who immediately exclaimed, "Oh, that kid is leaving. He's indeed shrewd, leaving through the back door of the auction house." Does he really think we wouldn't get the news? Zhu Hongji smiled coldly. Big brother, what do we do now? Zhu Hongjun rubbed his fists, his face ferocious. What else can we do? Immediately notify Wu Lengfen, the lord of the Wushu mansion, and tell him that the snake has come out of its hole. Let them bring people to join us and chase after him. HMPH. Thinking of escaping from my grasp in Wucheng is really naive. He. Big brother, let's set off quickly. That kid even spent money to buy the heavenly crippled armor and the blood spirit fire. He probably doesn't know that in the end, these two treasures will still fall into our hands. Zhu Hongjun grinned, his eyes revealing a ferocious murderous intent. Silently, Zhu Hongji, Zhu Hongjun, and other Zhu family experts, as well as Wu Lengfen and other experts from the Wushu mansion, all left without making a sound. Only a few small figures were left in their boxes. Guild leader, Zhu Hongji and Zhu Hongjun, the head of the Zhu family, have left the Zhu family's box. Wu Lengfen, the lord of the Wushu mansion, has also left the auction from the Wushu mansion's box. Judging by the direction, they should have gone to chase Master Qin. As soon as Zhu Hongji and the others left, a manager of the auction house came to Duan Lingtian to report the news. The Zhu family and the Wushu mansion have actually joined forces. It seems they still haven't given up on Master Qin. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes revealing a cold light. At this moment, another manager walked over. Guild leader, the guest in box number 30 said they have important matters to attend to and need to leave, asking us to settle the auction fees for the blood spirit fire first. Duan Lingtian frowned, his heart shuddering. Master Qin asked about this person's situation before. Could it be that he saw something? After hesitating for a moment, he said in a deep voice, settle it for him. Yes. The manager retreated. Another person said, Guild leader, what about Master Qin's side? Duan Lingtian said, don't worry about it for now. Let him go. He was sure that Qin Chen was leaving in such a hurry because he knew that the Zhu family and the Wushu mansion would be unfavorable to him. He should have even seen something about the guest in box number 30. But since he didn't ask for his help, he should have his own plans. After Qin Chen left the auction house, he didn't stop. He immediately arrived outside the city gate of Wucheng and headed towards the Xuanzhong mountain range. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. On Qin Chen's heels, Zhu Hongji, Wu Lengfen, and others closely followed, arriving at the city gate. Family head Zhu, Lord Wu. The city gate guards hurriedly came forward to salute. Where's Qin Chen? He just left here, heading towards the Xuanzhong mountain range, the guard hurriedly said. HMPH. He wants to use the Xuanzhong mountain range to escape our pursuit. Not a bad idea, but too naive, Zhu Hongji sneered. He. Big brother, that kid probably doesn't know that you had already anticipated this possibility and set up a net in front. Zhu Hongjun also laughed loudly from the side. Go! A group of people shouted in a low voice and immediately tracked him. Whoosh! Across the boundless wilderness, a figure darted rapidly. In the distance, the profound heavy mountains gradually came into view. Qin Chen moved like lightning, constantly approaching. During his flight, he fully released his mental power. As he expected, before long, several figures suddenly appeared behind him, precisely Zhu Hongjun and a few others from the Zhu family. To his surprise, beside Zhu Hongjun was also a powerful expert with an extraordinary aura. Qin Chen remembered that it should be Wu Lengfen, the master of the martial arts training hall. Qin Chen sneered. It seemed that in order to keep him here, the Zhu family not only took action themselves but also colluded with the martial arts training hall. However, Qin Chen didn't care about this group of people. Instead, he retracted his mental power. His powerful soul force was like an invisible wave, spreading out. Sure enough, 10 miles behind Zhu Hongjun and the others, the cloaked figure from box 30 was closely following, firmly tracking Qin Chen and Zhu Hongjun's group. Qin Chen's heart sank. This cloaked figure was indeed not a good person. He had just auctioned off the blood spirit fire, and in the blink of an eye, he was following the person who had bought it, even neglecting the exciting auction. Clearly, he had ulterior motives. Moreover, besides eyeing the blood spirit fire that he had just auctioned off, this person had not yet revealed himself but was carefully tracking Zhu Hongjun and the others. Perhaps he also had designs on Zhu Hongjun's group. The Zhu family and the martial arts training hall probably didn't know that behind them, there was an extremely terrifying expert tracking them. Zhu Hongji of the Zhu family and Wu Lengfen of the martial arts training hall were completely unaware, not noticing that there was a mantis stalking behind them. Qin Chen was only able to detect the other party because his soul force had reached the stage of condensing into form, his mental power had broken through to the 4th level, and he cultivated the extremely terrifying 10,000 gods technique. Even so, Qin Chen was still cautious, afraid that the other party would discover that he was spying on him. Moreover, Qin Chen had a huge doubt. What exactly was the other party's purpose in doing this? If it was just for a little money, there was no need to go to so much trouble. With this person's cultivation, he could walk unhindered in the Northwest 5 nations. There were too many opportunities to make money. A 5th-level martial grandmaster could instantly empty a large family like the Zhu family in a matter of minutes. Yet, he took out such a mysterious flame and repeatedly brought it to auctions to sell it. This simply didn't make sense. While flying, Qin Chen secretly carved array discs. Ever since he learned that the cloaked figure was a martial grandmaster, he had a strong sense of crisis in his heart and was constantly carving array discs. With his current cultivation, he was not at all a match for a 5th-level martial grandmaster in a real fight. Even escaping would be extremely difficult. What Qin Chen was doing now was to make his chances of escape greater. If Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen knew that the array discs Qin Chen was carving were not aimed at him, who knows what these people would think. In fact, that was really the case. From beginning to end, Qin Chen had not taken Zhu Hongji and the others seriously. Even if they were late-stage profound-level experts, even if he was not a match for them, escaping would not be a problem at all. What truly made Qin Chen fearful was that cloaked figure. This cloaked figure not only had a strange origin and terrifying cultivation, but also had a powerful aura in Qin Chen's opinion. That kind of powerful aura and keen intuition was not something ordinary martial grandmaster experts could possess. One had to know that in a place like the Northwest, ordinary profound-level martial artists who broke through to martial grandmaster were the weakest martial grandmasters when placed outside. After all, the Northwest didn't have any particularly powerful experts, and the cultivation techniques were also very ordinary. However, the aura on this person was incomparably terrifying, making Qin Chen feel an unprecedentedly strong sense of crisis. In the distance, the profound heavy mountains were getting closer and clearer. Just as Qin Chen was about to approach the profound heavy mountains and rush into them. Ha 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 ha. A series of loud laughter suddenly rang out. From both sides of the wilderness, a group of experts with extraordinary auras suddenly rushed out, each holding a battle blade, surrounding Qin Chen in the center. Who are you people? Why are you blocking this young master's path? Qin Chen stopped and frowned, pretending not to know the other party's identity. Who are we? Ha 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 ha. Boy, you've been so high profile in Martial City for so many days. Don't you even know who you've offended? TSK, a pill refinement master, what an awesome identity. Brothers, how many pills do you think this guy has on him? He, we'll find out soon enough. After this group of people blocked Qin Chen's route to the profound heavy mountains, they were not in a hurry to attack. Instead, they sized up Qin Chen at their leisure, each with a sinister smile on their faces. Gentlemen, we have no grievances with each other, there's no need to make things difficult for me. If you want to refine pills, that's no problem. As long as you bring out high-grade materials and pay the refinement fee, this master doesn't mind refining 2 furnaces for you, Qin Chen said calmly. PFFT. Hearing this, everyone in front of him burst out laughing, looking at Qin Chen as if he were an idiot. Brothers, what did I hear? This guy thinks we're looking for him to refine pills. He even wants us to provide high-grade materials and refinement fees. Has he gone stupid from refining pills? Does this guy really think he's still in the number 1 pill pavilion? Being surrounded by people, Qin Chen frowned and said coldly, if you're not looking for me to refine pills, then please get out of the way quickly. I have something to do and need to enter the profound heavy mountains immediately. At this time, you still want to enter the profound heavy mountains. I think going to hell is more like it. A thunderous sneer came, and with a whoosh, several figures quickly landed in front of Qin Chen. It's you, the Zhu family. What do you want? Qin Chen's expression sank. Seeing that it was the Zhu family, a trace of panic couldn't help but flash in his eyes, but he quickly pretended to be calm again. Ha 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 ha, what do we want? Weren't you very arrogant at the auction just now? Why aren't you arrogant now? After auctioning off the item, you were in such a hurry to leave before the auction even ended. Why bother being in such a hurry? Zhu Hongjun couldn't help but feel extremely smug. Wasn't this kid very arrogant before? Why has he suddenly shrunk back now? Does he know fear? As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Hongjun didn't say anything else and directly struck out a palm towards Qin Chen. The huge palm exuded a monstrous aura. His mid-stage peak profound level cultivation was instantly revealed, fiercely descending on Qin Chen. Bang! The huge impact fiercely sent Qin Chen flying out. He flew backwards for more than 100 meters, spitting out a mouthful of blood on the spot, and fell heavily to the ground. That enormous palm print, awe-inspiring and shaking the void, seemed like the hand of a god or demon reaching out to obliterate everything. In the void, the palm's power reverberated, with astonishing true energy lingering and slowly dissipating. Opposite, Qin Chen fell to the ground in a sorry state, blood spilling from the corner of his mouth, as if he had lost all fighting ability and couldn't even move. Ha ha ha, with just this bit of cultivation, you dare to act wildly in Martial City. The Zhu family members were stunned, then burst into laughter. Qin Chen had established the #1 pill pavilion in Martial City, causing a huge uproar. They had thought his cultivation was formidable, but who knew he would be so vulnerable? The key is, with just this bit of cultivation, he even flaunted his power at the auction. Where did he get the courage? Did he really think that by climbing into the good graces of the Tianxing Merchant Association, he could be safe and sound? Big brother, this person hasn't even reached the Xuan level. His cultivation is only at the late stage of the heaven level, not worth mentioning. Zhu Hongjun sneered, his face filled with disdain. On the opposite side, Qin Chen's face was as pale as paper, and he felt helpless. When fighting with others, he even had to force himself to spit blood. This was truly depressing. But Qin Chen knew that once he revealed his true strength, the Zhu family and the martial training prefecture would definitely attack with all their might. At that time, with Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen, two Xuan-level late-stage experts, joining forces, he wouldn't be pretending to spit blood, but actually spitting blood. Therefore, he could only appear weak to lower the guard. Da da! Amidst the loud laughter, Zhu Hongjun strode forward. His footsteps were heavy, landing on the ground like the sound of the Grim Reaper, knocking on the heart. Boy, I thought you were so impressive, but it turns out you only have this much ability. Tell me, who exactly are you? What is your purpose in coming to our Martial City? Also, were those pills of yours really refined by you personally? Zhu Hongjun looked at Qin Chen coldly, his body surrounded by true energy. He was high above, his aura soaring, looking down at Qin Chen as if he were a god controlling life and death. Bah! Qin Chen spat fiercely at him. Second Master Zhu, what's the point of talking nonsense with him? Why not just kill him directly, seize his storage ring, and see what's inside? I remember that he just spent 8 million silver coins to buy the heavenly crippled armor and that mysterious strange fire. I imagine there must be many treasures in his storage ring. A middle-aged man from the martial training prefecture stepped forward and said in a sinister tone. His eyes were greedy, staring intently at the storage ring in Qin Chen's hand. He reached out to grab Qin Chen's storage ring. Wait, Zhu Hongji suddenly spoke, sensing that something was wrong with Qin Chen. Based on Qin Chen's arrogance in Martial City, he shouldn't be so idiotic as to be captured by them so easily. Moreover, if this Qin Chen is really allied with the Tianxing Merchant Association, why wouldn't the Tianxing Merchant Association send someone to protect such a master alchemist, allowing him to be so easily injured and captured by his Zhu family? Zhu Hongji didn't find it strange that Qin Chen was intercepted by them and had no way out. After all, they and the martial training prefecture had long been prepared, setting up an inescapable net. It would be extremely difficult for even a fly to escape, let alone a living person. But Qin Chen being subdued so easily made him feel doubtful, and he vaguely felt that something was wrong. However, he spoke too late. Before his words could finish, Qin Chen, who was originally lying on the ground, suddenly moved. Whoosh! A snow-bright sword light illuminated the void, blooming with an ultimate dazzling light, stunning everyone's eyes. Poochie! The next moment, the middle-aged man's head, with wide eyes of shock and anger, soared into the sky, and blood spurted out nearly 10 feet away. At the same time, Qin Chen's figure was as fast as lightning, and the rusty sword in his hand shone brightly, like a shooting star, quickly stabbing towards Zhu Hongjun. Zhu Hongjun was shocked, then suddenly became furious. Good boy, you were actually deceiving me just now, looking for death. Before he finished speaking, he raised his palm abruptly, instantly turning it crimson, blooming with a steaming aura, and slashed down at Qin Chen fiercely. A scorching aura swept over, covering Qin Chen's head. With a clang, it struck the long sword Qin Chen stabbed out with. Sword and palm collided, and scorching heat waves swept over, wanting to burn people into nothingness. As the sword light flashed, Zhu Hongjun only felt a sharp aura sweeping over, and a wound appeared on his palm. At the same time, the giant wave had already enveloped Qin Chen. And Qin Chen was once again sent flying backwards dozens of meters away, falling heavily to the ground, and then spitting out another mouthful of blood. This time he was even more miserable. The clothes on his body were shattered, revealing the dark heavenly crippled armor inside. On his bare arms, faint scorch marks appeared, and even his hair was burned and curled up. Qin Chen groaned twice, staring intently at Zhu Hongjun, seemingly regretting that he hadn't been able to kill him earlier, but thinking in his heart, after this sneak attack, that cloaked person should lower his guard against his cultivation, right? The purpose of him doing all this was not because of the Zhu family and the martial training prefecture at all, but to confuse the cloaked person, so that he would know that his strength was, really, very ordinary. This is your alliance. You dared to play dead just now, wanting to sneak attack me. Detestable. Looking at the bloodstains appearing on the palm of his hand, Zhu Hongjun was furious. If the warrior from the martial training prefecture hadn't been standing in front of him earlier, and Qin Chen had killed him first, his reaction would not have been so fast. If it hadn't been for that person, he probably wouldn't have just suffered a little skin wound. Maybe, he would have suffered a hidden loss. What a cunning little brat. I originally wanted to let you die with dignity, but now I have decided to tear you to pieces and torture you to death bit by bit, so that you know the consequences of offending my Zhu family. Zhu Hongjun walked towards Qin Chen step by step, his face ferocious. This time, he didn't relax in the slightest, and circulated the true energy in his body to the extreme. Although he knew that Qin Chen had been severely injured and had almost no fighting ability, he still didn't slack off in the slightest. He didn't want the same thing to happen a second time, although the probability of it happening a second time was so low that it could be ignored. Ha ha ha. Faced with this inevitable situation, Qin Chen actually laughed at this time. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Zhu Hongjun's expression as if he were looking at an idiot. Everyone frowned, feeling a trace of something wrong. Zhu Hongjun frowned. At this time, you can still laugh. Are you completely desperate knowing that you are going to die? Qin Chen sneered. I laugh, because I laugh at you for being an idiot. I have been delaying time just now, and you don't even know it. Now, my reinforcements have arrived, do you know? Reinforcements. Startled, Zhu Hongji and the others hurriedly looked around. Swoosh. At this moment, Qin Chen's figure swayed, quickly leaping up, and rushing out of the crowd. HMPH. So you wanted to find a chance to escape, leave it to me. Boom. With a palm crushing down, Qin Chen was once again sent flying, falling heavily to the ground. Stinky brat, I'll cripple you first, and then let you experience the pain of being worse than dead. Zhu Hongjun walked towards Qin Chen step by step, his body exuding murderous intent. Huff. At this moment, a gust of wind sounded, and everyone immediately became alert, hurriedly turning their heads, and saw a cloaked person slowly walking out from a place not far behind them. There really are reinforcements. Zhu Hongji and the others all narrowed their eyes, staring intently at the suddenly appearing cloaked figure, the gazes becoming incredibly sharp. Just now, because of Qin Chen's reminder, their senses had all been released far and wide, and they hadn't sensed anyone's presence nearby at all, but the other party had silently walked out from a place not far from them, instantly causing Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen to break out in a cold sweat. Exchanging a glance, the two men's expressions turned solemn. With their cultivation, they hadn't noticed the existence of this cloaked figure earlier, which was truly illogical. The only explanation was that this cloaked figure's cultivation was extremely terrifying, perhaps not weaker than theirs, or that they possessed unique methods in concealing their aura. Seeing the cloaked figure appear, Qin Chen, on the contrary, breathed a sigh of relief. He had been pretending not to be Zhu Hongjun's match, his purpose being to make this cloaked figure think that he was in mortal danger. Qin Chen had a faint feeling that the other party's auctioning of the mysterious blood spirit fire wasn't just to earn money by repeatedly auctioning the blood spirit fire and then taking it back, but that they had some other purpose. If that was the case, the other party shouldn't have watched him die. Now, the cloaked figure's appearance immediately verified Qin Chen's guess, allowing him to breathe a sigh of relief while also becoming more vigilant, wondering what exactly the other party's purpose was. Who exactly are you, Your Excellency? State your name. Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen looked at the cloaked figure warily. In their hearts, Qin Chen was able to take out so many pills in Wucheng and kill Wu Liangyu, so there must be a powerful expert behind him. Could it be this cloaked figure in front of them? A pharmacist, yet without any powerful martial artist backing him, and still daring to snatch food from the mouths of other forces, truly not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you really think that just because you can refine powerful pills, others won't dare to touch you? The cloaked figure completely ignored Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen's questions, only staring at Qin Chen disdainfully, as if there was no one else around. Saying this, his gaze landed on Qin Chen. I was originally curious as to what kind of background a pharmacist who could take out fourth-grade pills had, or rather, what kind of figure was behind him. Unfortunately, I'm truly disappointed. Qin Chen bit his lip, but didn't say a word, wondering in his heart what exactly this cloaked figure's purpose was. If he only wanted to take back the blood spirit fire, he could have waited for the Zhu family and martial union to kill him before appearing to take it back. So what was the purpose of appearing now? The cloaked figure, without waiting for Qin Chen to speak, said to himself, "You were the one who auctioned off the Azure Lotus different fire at the Tianxing auction house, right? In such a short time, you shouldn't have had time to refine it yet. To tell you the truth, this old man needs to refine a special pill for certain reasons, and that pill can only be refined after refining this Azure Lotus different fire. Now, I'll give you a chance. As long as you can successfully refine that Azure Lotus different fire, this old man will help you get rid of these lackeys and save you. How about it?" Could it be that the cloaked figure's purpose in selling the Azure Lotus different fire was to have someone refine a pill for him? However, Qin Chen felt that his words seemed to have some problems, but he couldn't figure out what the problem was for the moment. The Zhu family and the martial union were still somewhat wary because they hadn't noticed the other party's silent intrusion nearby, but upon hearing the other party's words, they immediately couldn't help but speak up. "Your Excellency, your words are too boastful, aren't they? This person is an enemy of my Zhu family and the martial union, and he must be left here today. From what your Excellency said, you don't seem to have any relationship with him, so why bother inviting trouble upon yourself? There are plenty of pharmacists to be found, so why must you interfere in the affairs of my Zhu family and the martial union? My Zhu family and the martial union are not to be trifled with." Seeing that the other party dared to ignore them, Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen both snorted coldly. Although they couldn't see through the other party, who seemed very strong, he was still just one person, no matter how strong he was. Their Zhu family and the martial union had now laid a net around this area, with no less than 10 Xuan-level experts. Could they really be afraid of an unknown fellow? The cloaked figure sneered and said, "Zhu family. Martial union. What are those things? Just two bumpkins from a remote place, yet you dare to be arrogant in front of me. Family head. Why waste words with him? Just kill him." A Zhu family elder, hearing this, could no longer restrain himself, shouting explosively, and a black iron staff suddenly appeared in his hand, smashing down madly towards the cloaked figure's head. The black iron staff flowed with strands of dazzling patterns, and was clearly also an extremely extraordinary treasure weapon. When swung, the void exploded, and its power seemed capable of smashing a mountain. Seeing this, Zhu Hongji's eyes flashed, but he didn't stop it. This elder had a high position in the Zhu family, and his cultivation had already reached the peak of the early Xuan level, and he was also of a violent temperament and possessed terrifying true power. Letting him test the waters was most appropriate. The cloaked figure, who hadn't made any movements until now, sneered upon seeing this. Under the cover of the black iron staff, his figure didn't move at all. It wasn't until the black iron staff was about to land on his head that he suddenly raised his hand. The overwhelming staff shadows instantly disappeared. The Zhu family elder didn't even see what it was clearly. The furious expression on his face suddenly froze. The next moment, his body spurted out a cloud of blood mist. He looked at the cloaked figure in disbelief, wanting to say something, but couldn't say a word. He fell straight to the ground, his eyes wide open, and died. Whoosh! The people from the Zhu family and the martial union were all stunned, staring intently at the cloaked figure, their hearts and minds freezing. A martial artist at the peak of the early Xuan level was actually instantly killed. Not to mention Zhu Hongji and the others, even Qin Chen was secretly shocked. Although he already knew that this cloaked figure was a martial sect expert, this attack was a bit too ruthless. Qin Chen saw the cloaked figure's attack very clearly. It was an incomparably sinister black line, like a poisonous snake, with unparalleled speed, instantly piercing through the Zhu family elder's heart. You actually dared to kill Elder Zhu Zun. I want you to die. An elder who was on good terms with Zhu Zun, seeing this, was immediately incomparably furious, and no longer caring about anything else, he sacrificed the long saber in his hand and slashed towards the cloaked figure. This elder's cultivation was even higher than Zhu Zun's, and his true power had already broken through to the mid-Xuan level. He was one of the Zhu family's top experts. Seeking death. The cloaked figure sneered, his tone equally indifferent, without any fluctuation, and he raised his hand and shot out a black shadow. Zhu Hongji hurriedly made a move to intercept. Elder Zhu Guang, be careful. But it was too late. That black shadow was incomparably fast, arriving later but reaching first, instantly disintegrating Elder Zhu Guang's saber light. The next moment, the black shadow pierced through his body, bringing with it a cloud of blood mist. You. Elder Zhu Guang stared intently at the cloaked figure, a large amount of internal organ fragments spurting from his mouth, and then he fell to the ground with a thud, dying on the spot. Elder Zhu Guang. At that moment, everyone was shocked and angry, staring blankly at the scene before them, their hearts chilling, as if falling into an ice cellar. Zhu Zun and Elder Zhu Guang were among the most powerful experts of the Zhu family, yet they couldn't even withstand a single move from this cloaked figure. Just who exactly was this guy? With such cultivation, even if Zhu Hongji personally took action, he might not be able to achieve this effect. At the same time, it ignited the bloodlust of the Zhu family members. Kill him. Avenge Elder Zhu Guang and Elder Zhu Zun. The Zhu family experts all went crazy. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll just kill you all. The cloaked figure sneered and pounced over like a bat. Stop him. Without needing instructions, the many experts from the Zhu family and the martial cultivation manor had already pounced forward, the dense attacks transforming into an endless torrent, enveloping the cloaked figure tightly. The terrifying true energy that gathered surged in all directions, as if wanting to break through the heavens. Swish! A black shadow flashed past, and the cloaked figure advanced instead of retreating, instantly plunging into the midst of the sky-filled attacks. His figure was as fast as lightning, moving back and forth, strolling leisurely in the torrent formed by countless attacks, as if entering an unpopulated land. He arrived before the many martial artists, raised his right hand, and streams of black gas, like vipers striking, scattered in all directions. The next moment, countless miserable screams rang out, and the heads of more than a dozen martial artists from the Zhu family and the martial cultivation manor all exploded, blood mist spreading, each of them dying and vanishing. This scene stunned everyone present. With one move, more than a dozen martial artists fell. Just what kind of monster was this? Activate the grand formation. Zhu Hongji's face turned pale, and he hurriedly shouted loudly. Buzz! Between heaven and earth, without knowing when, streaks of invisible light bloomed, soaring into the sky. These rays of light shone brightly, releasing endless power, quietly descending. Every expert of the Zhu family stood around, their faces sinking, and beneath their feet were strange array flags, sealing off the surrounding void. But when countless rays of light merged together, forming a complete whole, Zhu Hongji finally breathed a long sigh of relief. This formation, named the Four Directions Five Elements Formation, was the Zhu family's clan guarding formation. The Zhu family had stood in Martial City for so many years, relying on this formation. From the name of this formation, it can be seen that this formation is arranged according to the four directions and five elements. A complete formation is a fifth-order formation, but the Four Directions Five Elements formation obtained by the Zhu family's ancestors was already somewhat incomplete. In addition, the Zhu family's cultivation was limited, which meant they could only display the cultivation of a fourth-order peak formation. But it was already enough. Zhu Hongji's original purpose in bringing this formation was actually to deal with the people of the Heavenly Star Merchant Association, but he never expected that it would be used on this cloaked figure. Once this formation was completed, its power was infinite. With him sitting in the center of the formation, even a late-stage peak mysterious level martial artist would find it difficult to gain an advantage and would have to drink his hatred within it. Everyone, follow me to activate the formation and kill this fiend. Wu Lengfen, you lead the people of the martial cultivation manor to assist from the side. Zhu Hongji's gaze was ferocious. The death of many Zhu family experts had completely ignited the anger in his heart, wanting to kill the cloaked figure in this formation. Boom! Along with his words falling, the grand formation was activated, and countless array lights and sharp edges accompanied by alarming whistling sounds, like locusts, swept towards the cloaked figure, determined to completely blast the cloaked figure into ashes. A petty trick. Trapped by this fourth-order peak grand formation, the cloaked figure was still not alarmed or flustered. After coldly laughing, he took a step towards the right front. With this step, the attacks he was subjected to immediately fell into a dead corner. The formation's original tenfold attack instantly decreased by at least half. Then he raised his hand and struck out with a palm. Boom! Terrifying power bloomed on the palm, and a palpitating aura spread out. The people in the formation instantly seemed to have fallen into a world of ice and snow, their bodies stiff, and fear arose in their hearts. The next moment, the sky-filled array lights swept by the formation shattered, blasted apart by the cloaked figure with one palm. Then, the cloaked figure once again struck out with a palm. With a boom, the grand formation shook violently, countless array lights scattered and shot out in all directions, tottering, and all the Zhu family experts controlling the grand formation all groaned. What? At this moment, Zhu Hongji's heart completely sank. He could no longer imagine just what kind of person he had provoked. He could easily shatter even the attacks of the Four Directions Five Elements formation. He knew that if it were him, that attack just now would definitely have caused him to be seriously injured and vomit blood, but the other party was completely fine. Moreover, with the other party's one palm, the Four Directions Five Elements formation was actually trembling. A late-stage peak mysterious level martial artist. No. Even a late-stage peak mysterious level martial artist wouldn't have such terrifying strength, right? His face turning pale, Zhu Hongji no longer dared to continue imagining. But at this point, it was no longer up to him to stop if he wanted to. The sword had already been drawn, and it wouldn't return without seeing blood. He was very clear that today, either the other party would die, or he would perish. Puff! A mouthful of blood essence spurted out, merging into the grand formation. The entire Four Directions Five Elements formation shone even more brightly, and the pressure descended, as if suppressing the eternal heavens, making it difficult to breathe. Manor Lord Wu, are you still not taking action? Zhu Hongji roared at the experts of the martial cultivation manor. Attack! Wu Lengfen's eyes were cold, and he shouted sharply. Immediately, dozens of martial cultivation manor experts who had been ambushing here all charged towards the cloaked figure. At this moment, Wu Lengfen was already somewhat regretful, regretting agreeing to the Zhu family's conditions. Although he couldn't see the cloaked figure's face, Wu Lengfen felt as if a pair of cold, bloodthirsty eyes were staring coldly at him. Under this gaze, he was like a trembling lamb under the feet of a wolf, and a trace of fear actually arose in the depths of his heart. He let out a low shout, forcefully shaking his head, dispersing this trace of fear. A cold, yin force covered his entire body, suppressing it. Boom! Dozens of experts from the martial cultivation manor attacked together, along with the 4 directions 5 elements formation activated by Zhu Hongji, combining together. Before the attacks landed, the entire earth was trembling and cracking, with countless ravines and cracks appearing. But the cloaked figure remained still. Qin Chen could even feel the cold smile being outlined under the other party's cloak. He immediately knew that even if the Zhu family and the martial cultivation manor joined forces, they probably wouldn't be a match for this person. As expected, countless attacks landed, and the ground was blasted open with sky-filled rubble. The cloaked figure, however, was in the grand formation, his figure strange, dodging many attacks repeatedly. Even if some landed on him, they only blasted a few holes in his robe, and his body didn't suffer any injuries. Then, he instantly plunged into the martial cultivation manor's crowd and attacked repeatedly. Puff, puff, puff. Streams of black light flashed past, and each time it flashed, a martial cultivation manor expert would have their body pierced through, spraying out blood mist. In the blink of an eye, the dozens of people brought by the martial cultivation manor had died, leaving only a few. And this cloaked figure still didn't have any injuries. Damn it! Wu Lengfen and Zhu Hongji were truly shocked and angry. With so many people working together, and with the 4 directions 5 elements formation in place, they were still no match for this cloaked figure. What terrified them even more was that under the cloaked figure's continuous attacks, the 4 directions 5 elements formation was constantly collapsing, tottering on the verge of breaking apart. Zhu Hongji's heart turned completely cold. Under the 4 directions 5 elements formation, this cloaked figure could still kill them so easily. Once the 4 directions 5 elements formation was destroyed, with their cultivation levels, they simply wouldn't be able to escape the cloaked figure's deadly attacks. Impossible! How could this cloaked figure's cultivation be so terrifying? Zhu Hongji and Wu Lengfen were shocked. They had dominated Wucheng for so long, and had never heard of such an expert in the Northwest 5 nations. In the past, countless experts from the 5 nations had been killed by their schemes. Those who came to Wucheng were all heinous criminals from the 5 nations. They never expected to be caught in such a situation today. At this moment, they no longer dared to hold back in the slightest. Each of them had a ferocious look in their eyes, urging the power of their bloodlines and swallowing large amounts of pills, trying to kill the cloaked figure. However, their successive attacks could only slow down the opponent's killing speed. Not to mention killing the cloaked figure, they didn't even have the ability to stop him from killing. 5 elements. Break the formation. Zhu Hongji knew that if things continued like this, he would definitely die. He couldn't care about anything else and urged the formation with all his might. In an instant, all the Zhu family members spat out a mouthful of blood. A large amount of essence blood merged into the formation, making the tottering formation even more powerful. Boom! It was as if a large mountain was pressing down heavily. At the same time, Wu Lengfen also roared loudly. His entire body shone with a cold light, and a chilling tide swept towards the cloaked figure. The 3 forces collided together. The Zhu family members and Wu Lengfen simultaneously groaned, and blood spurted out from various parts of their bodies. However, the cloaked figure seemed to be restrained as well. Black mist lingered around him, constantly twisting like tentacles, resisting the pressure of the formation. For a time, the 2 sides were locked in a stalemate. However, the aura on the cloaked figure's body was still so calm, as if he didn't take the stalemate in front of him seriously at all. The black tentacles on his body twisted wildly, gradually trying to break free from the pressure of the formation. Qin Chen was secretly horrified. From the moment he first saw this cloaked figure at the auction, he knew that this cloaked figure was terrifying, but he didn't expect him to be even more terrifying than he had imagined. This 4 directions 5 elements formation was at least a 4th tier peak formation. Under Zhu Hongji and the others' desperate urging with their blood as a guide, it had already approached the 5th tier mark. Yet, it could only barely suppress this cloaked figure. However, Qin Chen was also a decisive person. Seeing the cloaked figure trapped in a stalemate, he knew that now was the time to strike. Otherwise, once the cloaked figure dealt with the Zhu family and the martial arts department, even if he wanted to escape, he wouldn't have a chance. The moment Qin Chen decided to attack, he had already flown up. The mysterious rusty sword transformed into streaks of sword light and stabbed out fiercely. In an instant, it seemed as if thunder was surging in the sky. Several lightning-like sword lights, carrying an astonishing killing intent, slashed towards the cloaked figure. The moment the mysterious rusty sword attacked, 3 flying knives also burst out from Qin Chen's sleeves, transforming into 3 black streamers that instantly appeared in front of the cloaked figure. At the same time, Qin Chen even unleashed the mental storm. It wasn't that he didn't want to use the illusion imprisonment cage, but the illusion imprisonment cage required time to brew. If he wanted to use this opportunity to seriously injure the opponent, he had to attack as quickly as possible and not give the opponent any time to react. The 3 major attacks were launched almost simultaneously, like a violent storm, tragic and swift. With Qin Chen's 4th-tier spiritual power, the power of the black nether profound iron flying daggers was far greater than before, and even a profound level late-stage martial artist could be seriously injured. The rotating sword light carried an immortal sword intent, transforming into layers of sharp vortex sword mang, flying out layer by layer. As for Qin Chen's mental storm, it rushed towards the opponent at the fastest speed. However, at the moment of the attack, a strong sense of crisis suddenly rose in Qin Chen's heart. He was suddenly shocked, and a bad premonition surged into his heart. He finally understood where the previous abnormal feeling came from. It was simply that everything was going too smoothly. He thought that the Zhu family and the martial arts department were able to restrain the opponent. From the beginning, this cloaked figure had been passively parrying the attacks of the Zhu family and the martial arts department, but with his cultivation as a 5th-tier martial grandmaster, if he really wanted to attack, it was impossible for him to fall into such a passive situation, and even be trapped in a stalemate by the Zhu family and the martial arts department. He was doing this to see his trump cards clearly, and he thought that the other party was really trapped in a stalemate, and didn't see through the other party's acting. Boom! At the moment Qin Chen understood, a dozen black tentacles suddenly burst out from the cloaked figure's body. These tentacles twisted wildly, as if they were evolving a set of martial arts, sealing all his escape routes and wrapping towards him. Break! Qin Chen was shocked and roared, his sword light flashing as he shot out in all directions. Puff puff puff. However, these black tentacles were very tough. After the mysterious rusty sword slashed on him, it actually made a muffled sound of hitting broken leather, and it couldn't be cut off. At the same time, with 3 bangs, the 3 flying knives that Qin Chen secretly shot out were also all knocked away by the tentacles deep in the cloaked figure's body, and couldn't hurt him at all. The only thing worth celebrating was that the cloaked figure's resistance to the mental storm was not so strong. When the strong spiritual power rushed into his mind, his eyes immediately stagnated. After a moment, he immediately returned to normal. Although it was only a moment, Qin Chen seized this opportunity. Explode! Not caring about hiding his strength, a simple and unadorned true talisman instantly appeared in Qin Chen's hand. It was the 5th-tier true talisman he had snatched from Qin Feng during the preliminary round of the 5 Nations tournament. As soon as this true talisman was taken out, Qin Chen detonated it without hesitation. Boom! A ball of crimson light suddenly exploded in the void, and the scorching heat wave impacted in all directions. The black tentacles displayed by the cloaked figure were instantly torn into pieces under this scorching heat wave, and the entire earth trembled violently. At the same time, the powerful impulse knocked Qin Chen's entire body flying out. While flying backwards, Qin Chen tried his best to direct the power of the true talisman's explosion towards the cloaked figure's location. The endless heat wave instantly enveloped the cloaked figure. Ugh! A muffled groan came from the heat wave. Immediately afterwards, in the crimson heat wave, it was as if another huge black thing was waking up and twisting, instantly sweeping away the sky full of scorching waves. Under the attack of this 5th-tier amplitude, the cloaked figure was scorched black all over, and a trace of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Obviously, he suffered a small loss. The originally calm and composed posture completely disappeared. His gaze coldly fixed on Qin Chen. As expected, you didn't disappoint me. You actually possess such terrifying true rune attacks. It should be a 5th order true rune. If I hadn't only used 4/10 of my attention to deal with this broken formation and 6/10 to defend against you, I might have been severely injured. Also, that mental shock just now, you must have been the one who spied on me at the auction. The cloaked man's eyes were icy, and Qin Chen could even feel a strong chill emanating from them. It's a pity, although your strength is not weak, your cultivation is too low. As for that 5th order true rune, it is indeed powerful, but unfortunately, it's of the fire attribute. It's far from enough to kill me. Hee. Such a powerful alchemist, it truly makes me look forward to it. After being ambushed by Qin Chen, the cloaked man, although slightly injured and somewhat angry, didn't sound particularly frantic in his tone. Instead, he faintly revealed a hint of excitement. What was he excited about? Qin Chen's heart sank. The other party's actions were too strange. Although those black tentacles were fierce, Qin Chen could sense that this person's goal didn't seem to be to kill him and duo with the Azure Lotus different fire, but rather to capture him. What exactly did he want to do? Seeing Qin Chen's gloomy expression, the cloaked man couldn't help but let out a strange laugh and said, "Do you want to understand my purpose? Don't worry, I don't want to kill you. Just like I said just now, as long as you refine that mysterious strange fire, I will let you go. I always keep my word, but before that, you can't run around." After saying that, the cloaked man once again unleashed more than a dozen black tentacles. Each of these black tentacles was nearly twice as thick as before. The black tentacles danced wildly in the sky, containing astonishing power, like a demonic dance, frantically surrounding Qin Chen. On the other side, Zhu Hongji, Wu Lengfen, and the others who were operating the formation to resist the cloaked man were all staring blankly at Qin Chen and the cloaked man, as well as the countless black tentacles enveloping Qin Chen. The cold sweat on their backs was no longer dripping down, but flowing straight down. It turned out that the cloaked man hadn't used his full strength when fighting him just now. This was his full strength now. This kind of overwhelming and terrifying black tentacles made Zhu Hongji and the others feel cold all over just by looking at him, let alone resisting. What shocked him even more was that the young man had also been pretending to be weak all along, and his true strength was actually terrifying to such an extent. They had mistakenly thought that he had relied on someone to kill Wu Liangyu, but it turned out that his true strength was enough to easily kill Wu Liangyu. Especially Zhu Hongjin, whose legs were trembling at this moment, his body was icy cold, and his eyes were filled with fear. If he still didn't understand that Qin Chen's several injuries in his hands before were all fake, then he wouldn't need to continue living. And the reason why the other party pretended to be injured and unable to resist him was not aimed at himself at all, but at this cloaked man. Otherwise, not to mention anything else, just the terrifying power contained in the 5th order true rune he released just now would be enough to annihilate him and his elder brother, turning them into ashes. From beginning to end, the target of these two people was not their side. The hearts of Zhu family and Martial Union Mansion had completely sunk. What a terrifying kid, what a terrifying cloaked man. At this moment, they all knew that even Qin Chen would be difficult to escape under the cloaked man's attack. But even so, Qin Chen, such a young man, actually had so many trump cards, which still made him feel cold all over. It was laughable that they had just thought that the other party had to rely on the Heavenly Star Chamber of Commerce to survive. Whoosh! The black tentacles were dense, overwhelming, and completely sealed off the space around Qin Chen. Seeing Qin Chen about to be captured, the cloaked man also breathed a sigh of relief. He hadn't been in Martial City for just a day or two, and he had heard about this first pill pavilion. Although he wasn't afraid of such a strange genius alchemist, he was very cautious, which was his consistent principle. From the beginning when Qin Chen was being chased by the Zhu family and Martial Union Mansion, he had already felt something was wrong, so he deliberately revealed a flaw to deceive Qin Chen into taking the bait. He didn't expect this kid to really hide such a move. If he hadn't been prepared in advance, he might have really been severely injured by that 5th order true rune just now. Although it wouldn't have led to him being killed by this group of ants, it would definitely have encountered a lot of trouble, and maybe this kid would have escaped. Now that the kid's trump cards had been exposed, with just this bit of cultivation, he wanted to escape from his grasp. That was wishful thinking. However, before capturing Qin Chen, the cloaked man still didn't dare to relax in the slightest. He fully urged the black tentacles, wanting to imprison Qin Chen in the tentacles first. As for the Zhu family and Martial Union Mansion on the side, he had completely ignored them. Good opportunity. Zhu Hongji, Wu Lengfen, and other experts from the two major forces saw this scene. Although they were shocked and astonished, they also knew that this was their only chance to escape. Boom. One by one, they fully activated the true power in their bodies and attacked frantically. At this moment, they were no longer thinking about how to kill this cloaked man and Qin Chen. All they were thinking about was how to escape from the cloaked man's hands. Puff, puff, puff. Mouthfuls of essence blood spurted out from the mouths of Zhu Hongji and the others. At this moment, everyone in the Zhu family and the others were crazy, all with flushed faces, frantically swallowing various amplitude pills. The strong medicinal power was stimulated, and blood seeped out of every pore on their bodies. Under their stimulation, with a bang, the four directions 5 elements formation was urged to the extreme, and the brilliant formation light in the sky was like aurora shining, and like a fairy palace descending, turning into a steaming glow, and violently poured into the cloaked man's location. Wu Lengfen and the others from Martial Union Mansion were also violent, urging the cultivation of the late stage of the profound level to the extreme. Each of them bloomed the light of blood, like a Shura walking out of purgatory, waving the war knife, and issuing a shocking blow. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of attacks fell on the cloaked man, shaking his body's true power shield, constantly blooming with brilliant glow. These damn guys. With a cold snort in his heart, the cloaked man's eyes revealed a stern color, indifferent to the attacks of the Zhu family and Martial Union Mansion. The overwhelming attacks could not break through his defense for a while, and he himself fully urged the black tentacles, wanting to capture Qin Chen first. Qin Chen's hairs all over his body stood up. Now that things had come to this, he calmed down instead. In this life and death juncture, the more flustered he was, the more he couldn't solve the problem. Qin Chen knew that he couldn't be entangled by these black tentacles at all. Once entangled, there would be no room for escape at all, but with his current cultivation, he couldn't break through these black hands containing amazing power at all. Since he couldn't break through, then he shouldn't break through. At the critical moment, a large number of formation discs instantly appeared in Qin Chen's hand, and he threw them out violently towards the various positions of the 4 directions 5 elements formation. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As soon as these array discs landed, they immediately fused with the original 4 quadrants 5 elements array set up by the Zhu family, embedding themselves into the array's core. Array discs. Trying to use an array to stop me from capturing you. How naive. The cloaked figure chuckled, not afraid at all when he saw Qin Chen throw out the array discs. To trap him, only a 5th order array would work. Even a peak 4th order array wouldn't be enough. Qin Chen was so young, and already had such attainments in alchemy. He would definitely have some knowledge of arrays, but it was impossible for him to have cultivated to a very high level. With such a rudimentary array skill, trying to trap him was simply a fool's dream, and wouldn't even be able to hinder him in the slightest. But before the sneer on his lips could fade, the cloaked figure's eyes suddenly froze. Boom, 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 boom. The entire array trembled violently, and from where Qin Chen threw the array discs, beams of azure light suddenly burst out, majestic and awe-inspiring, suppressing everything, like pillars reaching the heavens, soaring into the clouds in an instant. The intense and magnificent azure light pillars completely fused with the foundation of the 4 quadrants 5 elements array, seamlessly and perfectly. The moment the arrays combined, Qin Chen abruptly performed a hand seal. With a rustling sound, a layer of azure light suddenly appeared on his body surface, containing the aura of defense, enveloping him. The next moment, countless black tentacles had already slammed fiercely onto this light cover. Bang, 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 bang. The azure light halo shook violently, but under the attack of the black tentacles, it stubbornly held on, finally persevering perfectly. What? The cloaked figure's eyes suddenly widened. He knew very well how strong his attack was. Not to mention a mere heaven stage martial artist like Qin Chen, even a late stage peak profound stage expert would be severely injured or even killed by this attack. Yet, His frantic attacks with so many black tentacles had failed to break the azure light shield in front of Qin Chen for a time. He looked at Qin Chen in disbelief, pointing at Qin Chen and saying in shock, You are actually also an array master. Being able to withstand his attack meant that the azure light halo on Qin Chen's body had definitely reached the level of a fifth-order array. And in such a short period, using a few array discs to directly break through the original fourth-order peak, barely approaching fifth-order array arranged by the Zhu family, to a fifth-order array, what else could he be but an array master? And at least a fourth-order or above array master. The cloaked figure was shocked. He couldn't imagine how such a freaking genius could exist in a place like the Northwest Five Nations. While the cloaked figure was shocked, Zhu Hongji and Zhu Hongjin were even more horrified. As array family, the two of them were naturally very accomplished in arrays. They immediately felt that the array discs thrown by Qin Chen had almost completely repaired the incomplete fifth-order 4 quadrants 5 elements array passed down from their ancestors. What kind of array cultivation was this? For countless years, the successive patriarchs of their Zhu family had all wanted to complete this fifth-order array left by their ancestors, but after so long, no one had ever succeeded. But now, Qin Chen of the First Pill Pavilion had done it, and it seemed so effortless, giving them an unprecedented shock in their hearts. Enough nonsense. Qin Chen snorted coldly, his expression calm, and his hands quickly formed array seals. Looking from a distance, Qin Chen's hands instantly seemed to turn into countless afterimages, forming ancient array symbols. These array symbols quickly flew out of his hands and merged into the great array. The obscure and ancient nature of those array symbols stunned everyone in the Zhu family. With their array skills, they couldn't even see Qin Chen's gestures clearly, let alone understand them. Rumble. Along with the integration of a large number of array symbols, the aura of the 4 quadrants 5 elements array instantly soared. If it was originally a large river, then in an instant, it turned into a vast ocean. The terrifying aura, like a sweeping tsunami, overwhelmingly pressed down on the cloaked figure, wanting to completely trap and kill him. What are you still standing there for? Do you want to die at this guy's hands? Hurry up and take this opportunity to attack. Qin Chen shouted angrily at the Zhu family and the many experts of the martial union who were dumbfounded. The many experts of the Zhu family and the martial union finally reacted and immediately attacked the cloaked figure. A sense of absurdity arose in their hearts. They had originally wanted to ambush Qin Chen and capture and kill him, but they never expected that they would now join forces with him. The world was truly unpredictable. HMPH. Good kid, I didn't expect I would underestimate you. But do you think you can kill me with this array? Idiot. After the cloaked figure's shock, he immediately regained his composure. He raised his hands, and a layer of black mist suddenly flew out of his hands. It was unknown what these mists were. They were formed by a group of black dots, constantly wriggling, like locusts, suddenly pouncing on the halo of the array. Crack, 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 crack. It sounded like there were sounds of tearing and chewing. The light shield of the 4 quadrants 5 elements array was immediately corroded by this black mist, as if disappearing out of thin air. Chi-devouring ants. Seeing this black mist, Qin Chen was shocked. These black mists were actually composed of ant-like insects the size of needles, and were actually the legendary chi-devouring ants. Chi-devouring ants were an extremely terrifying type of insectoid blood beast. This type of blood beast fed on true energy and could devour all true energy substances, while attacks of true energy were very limited against them. Any array could be activated because it contained a large amount of true energy. But under these chi-devouring ants, all arrays would lose their effect, and the energy within would be gradually devoured by these chi-devouring ants. When the energy to activate the great array disappeared, then even the most exquisite array would lose its original function. Go. Originally, Qin Chen wanted to use this 4 quadrants 5 elements array to compete with this cloaked figure, but at this moment, he lost the desire to continue staying. With these chi-devouring ants, the cloaked figure in front of him was almost invincible, and the array couldn't have much effect on him at all. If the array inherited from the Zhu family was a killing array, he might still fight it out, but the 4 quadrants 5 elements array was just a type of trapping array. Even if he repaired it to the extreme, he would not be able to kill this cloaked figure at all. Staying would only lead to death. Thinking of this, Qin Chen no longer hesitated and, with a sway of his body, fled wildly towards the outside of the array, actually running away with his tail between his legs, rushing towards the nearby profound heavy mountain range. Damn it! This kid is running away. Seeing this, the cloaked figure's expression was ferocious. What he feared most was Qin Chen running away. With a wave of his hand, the black mist transformed by the chi-devouring ants chased after Qin Chen into the profound heavy mountain range like a black curtain. Buzz buzz buzz. A series of buzzing sounds came, and the black mist formed by the locusts, like a curtain, covered the sky and the sun, chasing after Qin Chen quickly. Wherever it passed, the trees in the Xuanzhong mountain range were all gnawed into nothingness, as if locusts had crossed the border, leaving no grass growing. As soon as Qin Chen left, the people from the Zhu family and the martial arts department were shocked. Because Qin Chen was there, they could barely fight against the cloaked man. Now that Qin Chen had escaped, how could they escape from the cloaked man with their cultivation? Amidst the fear and trepidation, the cloaked man was also furious. If the Zhu family and the martial arts department hadn't trapped him in the Great Formation, how could he have allowed Qin Chen to escape into the Xuanzhong mountain range? If Qin Chen really escaped, wouldn't all his painstaking efforts be in vain? You all must die for me. With an angry roar, terrifying black light bloomed from the cloaked man's body. Rumble. Countless black tentacles swept out from his body, constantly striking the four directions' 5 elements formation. Each strike dimmed the light surrounding the formation, making it seem precarious. The chi-devouring ants had already torn a gap in the 4 directions' 5 elements formation. With the cloaked man's own strength, it was enough to shatter the formation bit by bit. With repeated strikes, the formation shook violently, and blood immediately overflowed from the corners of Zhu Hongji and others' mouths. Their eyes became extremely frightened, and their hearts sank completely. They deeply knew that they had lost the possibility of continuing to fight. Without Qin Chen, the 4 directions' 5 elements formation could not be pushed to its limit. With the formation cultivation of the few of them, it wouldn't be long before the formation would be broken, and they would definitely be beheaded by the cloaked man. Your Excellency, we have no grievances with you, how about letting us go? As long as Your Excellency speaks, no matter what the price, it can be negotiated. In the formation, Zhu Hongji said hoarsely, covered in blood. Now, to survive, they could only beg the cloaked man not to kill them. As the head of the Zhu family, Zhu Hongji had been in Wucheng for so many years, and he was well aware of the principle of being able to bend and stretch. That's right. As long as Your Excellency lets us go, no matter what requirements Your Excellency puts forward, we will never refuse. Why bother fighting and killing? Wu Lengfen of the martial arts department also said nervously. At this moment, his heart was full of regret and annoyance, hating himself for agreeing to the Zhu family and insisting on finding trouble with Qin Chen. Now, it was good. He didn't get any benefits, but he offended such a strong enemy. I'm afraid that the entire martial arts department might be destroyed because of his decision. Let you go. The cloaked man looked at Zhu Hongji and others coldly, and said with a sneer, the tentacles in his hand did not stop at all. That's right. If Your Excellency insists on fighting, although we will not be able to escape death, Your Excellency may not gain much advantage. But if you let us go, we are willing to hand over a large number of treasures in exchange for our lives. Zhu Hongji said anxiously while coughing up blood. Now his condition had reached an extremely critical moment. A large amount of consumption had caused the meridians in his body to break open. If he continued to fight, he would become a useless person due to the exhaustion of his true energy, even without the cloaked man's action. Ha ha ha. The cloaked man smiled coldly, and a cold smile bloomed on the corner of his mouth. Let this old man let you go. That's a dream. Rumble. Seemingly knowing that the other party had reached the end of their strength, the black tentacles danced even more frantically. Bang bang bang. With repeated strikes, cracks instantly appeared on the formation, and a large amount of true energy leaked out in all directions, and the power of the 4 directions' 5 elements formation began to decline in an instant. Zhu Hongji's face was gloomy, and he said angrily, why does Your Excellency have to fight to the death and destroy everything? Fight to the death. The cloaked man sneered, you overestimate yourself too much. The fish will die, but the net will not break. Boom. A black tentacle struck down forcefully, and a crack suddenly appeared in the formation. A large amount of true energy poured out in all directions, and the power of the four directions five elements formation began to decline in an instant. Big brother, what should we do now? Zhu Hongjin, who had been arrogant and domineering towards Qin Chen before, was about to cry at this time. Damn it, I'll fight with you, second brother, take the clansman away immediately. At the critical moment, Zhu Hongji was also decisive, knowing that the formation could not be defended. He suddenly mobilized the power of the formation. Rumble, countless formation lights circulated, and suddenly contracted and exploded. Boom. The entire formation suddenly exploded, and countless formation forces swept out in all directions, turning into a hurricane vortex. The terrifying power plowed the entire ground, lifting a large amount of turf debris, like the collapse of the sky and the cracking of the earth, like the end of the world. The formation exploded, and Zhu Hongji and others flew out one by one, coughing up blood, and were blown away by the force of the formation explosion. Among them, many warriors with weaker cultivation bases and more serious injuries screamed in the process of being blown away, and they all burst into blood mist, leaving no bones left. Go! Zhu Hongji and others were covered in blood, but they still had a breath to support them. After landing on the ground, they let out a low cry and rushed towards Wu Cheng. He knew very well that the other party's goal was more on Qin Chen. Only by going in the opposite direction to the Xuanzhong mountain range where Qin Chen was going could they have a chance of escaping. Moreover, Zhu Hongji had already made a decision in his heart. After returning to Wu Cheng, he would pack up his things as soon as possible and move the entire Zhu family out of Wu Cheng. With the other party's cultivation, once they came to the Zhu family's mansion, they would still be unable to resist. On the other side, the people from the martial arts department were also fleeing frantically. Where the formation was located, the earth rumbled. After the sky full of formation light dissipated, a black figure stood in the center of the formation, his clothes shattered, but it was not obvious that he had suffered much damage. These ants think they can escape from this old man's hands. Overestimate yourself. With a sneer, the cloaked man's figure suddenly swept out. Like a ghost, his speed was as fast as lightning, and he caught up with Zhu Hongji and others in an instant. Die! The black tentacles waved and slammed down on Zhu Hongji and others. No! A series of shrill screams sounded. Zhu Hongji and others looked unwilling, but they were unable to fight back, and could only watch the black tentacles shatter the protective true energy on their bodies, and then blast their entire bodies into pieces in an instant. Puff puff puff. In the air, it was as if puffs of blood mist were blooming, gorgeous and desolate. Stinky boy, still want to escape under the tracking of this old man's chi-devouring ants. Overestimate yourself. With a wave of his hand, a large number of storage rings fell into the cloaked man's hands. He glanced at them and threw them into his storage ring, then sneered, his figure swayed, and he instantly swept towards the place where Qin Chen disappeared, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the Xuanzhong mountain range. Whoosh! A figure flashed past quickly, running wildly, and behind him, dense black mist, like a black curtain, was constantly approaching. Chi-devouring ants are good at tracking true energy fluctuations and are extremely fast. If I escape like this, I can't escape the tracking of these chi-devouring ants at all. By then, it won't be long before the cloaked man catches up. Feeling the chi-devouring ants behind him, Qin Chen's eyes were cold and his heart was anxious. But he had no way to deal with it. Chi-devouring ants lived by devouring true energy. Any attack from a martial artist was essentially true energy, and ordinary attacks had little effect on them. Whoosh! A sword light flashed, illuminating the heavens and the earth. The sharp sword energy contained an astonishing sword intent, slashing towards the rear. With a whoosh, sensing the arrival of these sword lights, the black curtain formed by the chi-devouring ants instantly split open from the middle. Immediately afterward, the dazzling sword energy was enveloped by a large number of chi-devouring ants, and in the next instant, it was reduced to nothingness. Apart from the terrifying sword light causing damage to a small number of chi-devouring ants in a short period, the remaining chi-devouring ants, after devouring the 9-star god Emperor Art's true energy contained in the sword light, actually became even stronger, and their aura became even more terrifying. No. Although the 9-star god Emperor Art the First cultivate has profound true energy, it doesn't have an absolute killing effect on chi-devouring ants. Apart from the sword intent being able to obliterate some chi-devouring ants, constant attacks will only strengthen the power of the chi-devouring ants. Buzz. Immediately afterward, Qin Chen unleashed a mental storm, but it was equally useless. These chi-devouring ants had a very simple mental structure, different from humans and blood beasts. Mental attacks had a minimal impact on them. Not only that, but these chi-devouring ants were also very cunning, staring at him intently. No matter which corner Qin Chen drilled into, they could follow closely, clearly being driven by the cloaked man to track him. I can't just sit here and wait for death. I don't believe that these chi-devouring ants can endlessly absorb my true energy. Unable to think of a good solution, Qin Chen gritted his teeth and became ruthless, pushing the true energy in his body to the extreme, constantly waving his sword to kill towards the rear. Countless sword energies seemed to transform into a river of swords reaching the sky, frantically slashing into the black curtain of chi-devouring ants. PFFT, 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 PFFT. Each of these sharp sword energies contained Qin Chen's strongest attack and carried an astonishing sword intent. As soon as they fell into the black curtain of chi-devouring ants, a portion of the chi-devouring ants were obliterated by the sword intent, but in the next moment, more chi-devouring ants enveloped these sword energies, densely wrapping them up, and then constantly devouring them completely. One after another, astonishing sword energies were quickly slashed out and devoured. Before these chi-devouring ants could finish devouring, another batch of massive sword energies had already been slashed out by Qin Chen once again. Although chi-devouring ants could continuously devour true energy to strengthen themselves, their ability to devour was not endless and had certain limits. Once it reached a certain limit, not only could they not devour, but their bodies would explode from being overstuffed. Qin Chen wanted to use such a method to burst these chi-devouring ants to death. Originally, with the terrifying power of Qin Chen's 9-star god Emperor Art, it might not have been impossible to achieve this, but what Qin Chen didn't expect was that after these chi-devouring ants absorbed his true energy, they became even more terrifying and faster. The black curtain transformed into a cloud of black mist, suddenly enveloping Qin Chen, wanting to completely devour him. Come on! Qin Chen also became ruthless. In an instant, his entire person was enveloped by endless chi-devouring ants. These chi-devouring ants flew around him, actually wrapping him into a zongzi, constantly absorbing the true energy from his body, while Qin Chen frantically stimulated his true energy. The two sides quickly fell into a stalemate. You want to devour, don't you? Here, I'll give it all to you. Qin Chen frantically stimulated the true energy in his body. Even the power of the bloodline within his body was stimulated. A surge of thunderous blood light, along with the stimulation of true energy, suddenly surrounded his body surface. A scene that Qin Chen didn't expect occurred. After these chi-devouring ants came into contact with Qin Chen's thunderous bloodlight, they suddenly seemed to have seen something that frightened them, and frantically retreated. Crackling. Thunder light flickered. Visibly to the naked eye, many chi-devouring ants were quickly struck into ashes under the power of the thunderous bloodline and disappeared. However, there were also some chi-devouring ants that did not perish under the thunderous blood energy. Instead, their bodies were entangled with a trace of thunder light, swaying and groaning, as if they were drunk and fell into a daze. The thunderous bloodline is actually so effective against chi-devouring ants. Qin Chen was stunned. In his previous life, he had never heard that the power of the bloodline could cause such great damage to chi-devouring ants. Could it be because of the thunder attribute? Although he didn't understand the reason, Qin Chen wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. The power of the bloodline within his body became even more violent in an instant. ZZ. Thunder light surged, and immediately, many more chi-devouring ants were struck into ashes by the power of the thunderous bloodline. However, there were also a portion that survived, as if they had mutated. Furthermore, Qin Chen faintly felt in his heart that the connection between these mutated chi-devouring ants and the cloaked man seemed to have been severed. Instead, a mysterious connection was formed between them and himself. Qin Chen was dumbfounded. There's even this kind of effect. Under the suppression of the thunder light, the remaining chi-devouring ants no longer dared to approach Qin Chen. However, after they retreated a certain distance, they seemed to be attracted by the thunderous blood energy on Qin Chen's body, unwilling to leave from afar. This feeling was extremely strange. Qin Chen could feel that these chi-devouring ants were both fearful and filled with a huge attraction to his thunderous blood energy, frantically circulating around him, no longer launching attacks on him, but equally unwilling to leave. Perhaps I can use the power of the thunderous bloodline to subdue these chi-devouring ants. A thought arose in Qin Chen's mind. Previously, he had also considered this possibility, but he was very clear that the cultivation of chi-devouring ants was very difficult. It was necessary to communicate with them through bloodline when they were still eggs, and then hatch and cultivate them little by little, creating a mental connection with each other, in order to make them obey his commands and be as easy to use as his own arms and fingers. Unlike ordinary blood beasts, which could be tamed using beast taming techniques. But now, his thunderous bloodline actually had a transformative effect on these chi-devouring ants, and Qin Chen's heart suddenly became active. Power of the bloodline. Explode. With a loud shout, Qin Chen suddenly stimulated the power of the bloodline within his body to the extreme. In an instant, his entire person seemed like the thunder god had descended into the world, and streams of thick thunder light burst out from his body, sweeping across that large group of chi-devouring ants. ZZ. A large number of chi-devouring ants couldn't avoid it at all and were enveloped by the power of the thunderous bloodline. This time, Qin Chen didn't use much power, but simply tried to use the power of the thunderous bloodline to transform these chi-devouring ants. What shocked Qin Chen was that under his thunderous bloodline, the mental imprint of the cloaked man that had originally been left on these chi-devouring ants was instantly obliterated. At the same time, a large number of chi-devouring ants underwent transformation under the power of the bloodline. In just the blink of an eye, more than half of the chi-devouring ants had died, and about 1/10 of the chi-devouring ants had survived. Each of the surviving chi-devouring ants had thunder light surging on their bodies, and a strange connection was formed with Qin Chen in the dark. Receive. With a wave of his sleeve, Qin Chen immediately took the surviving chi-devouring ants into his storage ring, and then let out a long roar. Chirp. In the distant sky, the iron feather eagle suddenly appeared and landed in front of Qin Chen. Qin Chen immediately jumped on it, and with the stimulation of his spiritual power, the iron feather eagle let out a long cry and spread its wings to leave. PFFT. At this time, tens of miles away from Qin Chen, the cloaked man, who was flying and tracking, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and looked up in horror at the iron feather eagle soaring in the distance, revealing a hint of anger in his eyes. The black iron feather eagle spread its wings, resembling a ferocious bird of prey, soaring into the sky and creating a large gust of wind. Visibly, a figure was sitting cross-legged on the iron feather eagle's back. Who else could it be but Qin Chen? Damn it! How could this kid possess a flying blood beast? Could he also be a beast tamer? Moreover, why has my connection with the chi-devouring ants completely disappeared? The cloaked man's face turned pale, and he vaguely felt a sense of unease. Just now, during the tracking process, he suddenly discovered that his connection with the chi-devouring ants had disappeared, causing damage to his spirit, which led to him being injured and vomiting blood. In a moment of panic, his figure swayed, and he instantly arrived at the location where the chi-devouring ants had disappeared. A burnt smell permeated the air. The ground was densely covered with a layer of black substance, like a handful of black sand scattered on the ground. These were the corpses of the chi-devouring ants, extinguished by the thunder bloodline but not completely burned into nothingness. Ah! This damned bastard, he actually dared to annihilate my chi-devouring ants. If I don't kill this person, I, the bloodworm demon, will have lived in vain. Seeing the ground covered with chi-devouring ant corpses, the cloaked man was immediately enraged and roared furiously. Does this kid think he can escape my tracking like this? That azure lotus different fire has a mark and aura left by me. As long as he tries to refine that azure lotus different fire, he will eventually fall into my hands. A strange light flickered in the cloaked man's eyes. As if thinking of something, he sneered, "Humph. After this child obtains the azure lotus different fire, he should be extremely excited, right?" When he refines it, he will know why I auctioned off this azure lotus different fire. With that kid's alchemy skills, he might even allow the azure lotus different fire to complete its evolution. All of this will just be a wedding dress for me, he he, he he he. The cloaked man's evil and chilling sneer echoed for a long time in the heavens and earth, startling a large number of surrounding blood beasts, which fled in terror. After sensing for a moment, the cloaked man's figure flickered, and he flew towards the depths of the profound heavy mountain range where the iron feather eagle had flown, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Qin Chen controlled the iron feather eagle, constantly flying towards the depths of the profound heavy mountain range. After flying for several hours, he finally controlled the iron feather eagle to land in a remote valley. He touched the iron feather eagle's head and fed it a few pills. The iron feather eagle's paws all relaxed, and it excitedly ran to the side to absorb and cultivate. Qin Chen himself then went to the depths of the valley and sat down cross-legged. Earlier, when he was on the iron feather eagle's back, Qin Chen had been observing the condition of the chi-devouring ants in the storage ring. After being stimulated by the thunder bloodline, each of the chi-devouring ants was surrounded by electric light and had fallen into a deep sleep. The aura on their bodies had also become deeper. Moreover, on the originally pitch-black backs of these chi-devouring ants, 2 golden thunder patterns had appeared. They flickered brightly and dimly with the chi-devouring ants breathing, emitting a strange aura. This was the first time Qin Chen had encountered such a situation. According to legends, chi-devouring ants can devour all true energy in the world. They are ranked extremely high on the list of strange spirit insects. These chi-devouring ants can easily devour my sword chi-containing sword intent. In terms of grade, they have at least reached the 5th rank. Where exactly did that cloaked man obtain these chi-devouring ants? The difficulty of cultivating chi-devouring ants is extremely high, especially to cultivate them to the 5th rank. The materials and resources consumed would definitely be an astronomical figure. At least Qin Chen didn't think that in a place like the Northwest 5 Nations, someone would be able to cultivate such strong chi-devouring ants. What exactly is the origin of that cloaked man? Not only does he possess things like chi-devouring ants, but he also has the azure lotus demonic fire on him, and his spiritual perception is so sharp. It seems that he is also an alchemist. Qin Chen thought for a long time but couldn't figure out the cloaked man's origin. Such an expert, who was previously unknown in the entire Northwest, could it be that he is not from the Northwest 5 Nations? His heart couldn't help but feel a chill. This was not impossible. At least in a place like the Northwest 5 Nations, it is almost impossible to cultivate chi-devouring ants. Only in a more vast outside world is there such a possibility. After simply recovering his physical condition and adjusting his body to its peak, Qin Chen then turned his attention away from the chi-devouring ants and took out the azure lotus different fire from the storage ring. This azure lotus different fire was almost exchanged for with his life. If he was not a grandmaster of formations, or did not have the Thunder bloodline, or did not have the Zhu family and martial union's restraint, and the Iron Feather Eagle's early reception in the profound heavy mountain range, if he lacked any one of these conditions, it would have become extremely difficult for him to survive from the cloaked man's hands. And all of this was to obtain this azure lotus different fire and eliminate the 100 ghosts curse in his body. Now, Qin Chen's only prayer was that this azure lotus different fire would not disappoint him. Adjusting his mood, Qin Chen had just opened the jade box when a scorching flame aura immediately permeated out. The temperature of the entire valley seemed to have risen in an instant. At this moment, with the azure lotus different fire in Qin Chen's hand, Qin Chen could more clearly and intuitively feel the special nature of this different fire. Although its aura was constantly changing, the original power of the flame aura was very pure and definitely could not be compared to ordinary low-level demonic fires. Although he didn't know if this azure lotus different fire was the legendary azure lotus demonic fire, it was definitely an extraordinary blood spirit fire. There was no doubt about this. Without hesitation, Qin Chen immediately slowly guided this azure lotus different fire out of the jade box. Before Qin Chen could even refine this azure lotus different fire, he felt a spiritual mark. This spiritual mark was located in the corner inside the azure lotus different fire jade box and was very hidden. If he hadn't guided the Azure Lotus different fire out, even Qin Chen's spiritual power would not have been able to sense it earlier. Coldly snorting, he directly eliminated the spiritual mark inside the jade box. Without hesitation, Qin Chen threw out more than a dozen formation plates around him, setting up a formation, and then his spiritual power seeped into this Azure Lotus different fire. Extremely terrifying heat was transmitted over. A wave of alarming flame aura entered Qin Chen's body along with his spiritual power. Qin Chen was secretly shocked. If he hadn't been extremely careful, even if his spiritual power had stepped into the 4th rank, just now, it was very likely that his spiritual power would have been burned into nothingness, severely injuring his consciousness. What a terrifying flame! Qin Chen didn't dare to be careless, and what shocked him even more was that as time passed, the aura of this Azure Lotus different fire was actually constantly changing, and the damage to his spiritual power also changed with the changes in the aura. When the aura of this Azure Lotus different fire dropped to its lowest point, Qin Chen even felt that he could refine this Azure Lotus different fire in an instant. It's now. When the aura of the Azure Lotus different fire dropped to its weakest point, Qin Chen suddenly activated his spiritual power, transforming it into a spiritual rune, and struck it into the Azure Lotus different fire, instantly beginning to refine it. Qin Chen thought it would take some effort, but to his surprise, he refined the Azure Lotus different fire in just an instant. Qin Chen was stunned, vaguely feeling that something was wrong. It was too easy. Even though he refined it when the Azure Lotus different fire was at its weakest, the refinement was still too simple. The refinement of any demon fire, earth fire, or sky fire is an extremely complex process, requiring the gradual fusion of mental power and flame to reach a state of perfect resonance before the different fire can be completely refined. The refinement of sky fire is even more difficult because sky fire possesses its own consciousness. Refining it is equivalent to enslaving or even obliterating it. Therefore, the stronger the different fire, the higher the difficulty of refining it. However, this Azure Lotus different fire only took Qin Chen a breath's time to easily and perfectly fuse with it, his mental power completely integrated within it. It was simply too easy. Even a first-order demon fire probably wouldn't be this easy. Despite his doubts, no matter how Qin Chen observed, this Azure Lotus demon fire had indeed been refined by him, giving him a feeling of effortless control, as if it had completely merged with him. Even with the increase in the power of the Azure Lotus different fire, the scorching, almost burning sensation completely disappeared, and it gently danced in his palm. Never mind. Without understanding the reason, Qin Chen didn't think too much about it and directly introduced the Azure Lotus different fire into his body. Whoosh! A rich aura of demon fire instantly rose in Qin Chen's mind. Under his control, this Azure Lotus different fire floated above his mental sea. The faint aura of different fire made Qin Chen's entire soul sea feel comfortable, and a breath of life emanated from the different fire, nourishing his soul sea. Qin Chen was shocked. What kind of flame was this? It actually contained such pure life force. Let's refine the 100 Ghost Curse first and see if this Azure Lotus different fire has any effect. To Qin Chen's surprise, just as he was about to urge the Azure Lotus different fire to refine the 100 Ghost Curse aura, a strong life and death crisis suddenly arose from the bottom of his heart. The Azure Lotus different fire no longer had its previous gentleness, and it suddenly burst out with a powerful and terrifying murderous intent, instantly rushing towards the soul sea below. Qin Chen was extremely shocked. He had clearly already refined this Azure Lotus different fire, but it could actually break free from his control and even launch an attack on his soul sea. At this moment, the aura of the Azure Lotus different fire instantly soared, and a scorching aura raged above his soul sea, causing his soul sea to fluctuate violently, as if it would be burned into nothingness under this Azure Lotus different fire. This Azure Lotus different fire simply wanted to obliterate his soul. Moreover, the speed at which the Azure Lotus different fire erupted was too fast, so fast that Qin Chen didn't even have time to react before it had already arrived above the soul sea, its terrifying flame power about to explode. Did you really think I wasn't prepared? Seeing that the Azure Lotus different fire was about to blast apart Qin Chen's soul sea, the shock on his face instantly disappeared, replaced by an unparalleled depth. In the next moment, Countless white lights suddenly appeared above the Soul Sea. These white lights crisscrossed, forming a net that blocked the azure lotus different fire. At the same time, the brilliant illusory longsword formed from mental power above the Soul Sea instantly moved, fiercely slashing at the azure lotus different fire. Boom! The fourth order mental power longsword collided with the azure lotus different fire, and a terrifying shock wave erupted, raging above Qin Chen's Soul Sea. If Qin Chen hadn't been prepared and set up many restrictions in the Soul Sea, this shock alone would have greatly damaged his Soul Sea. After being slashed by the mental sword, the azure lotus different fire kept wriggling, emitting waves of angry and violent aura. The ferocious aura was like a demon from hell, roaring in anger. I already felt that you were a bit strange. I didn't expect that you, this different fire, had actually given birth to intelligence. Qin Chen was extremely shocked. His divine sense hadn't detected the intelligence within the azure lotus different fire, but the restless agitation and violent murderous aura that the azure lotus different fire exuded. How could Qin Chen not see that there was a problem with this different fire? You're really something, pretending to have no intelligence and letting me refine you smoothly. I didn't expect that you still had a wisp of intelligence hidden in the deepest part of the flame, HMPH. Qin Chen sneered. This intelligence hiding in the azure lotus different fire must have ill intentions. If it had good intentions, the azure lotus different fire would have taken the initiative to acknowledge him as its master, and he would have known about the existence of the intelligence long ago. No wonder he always felt uncomfortable when he was refining it earlier. So that's what it was all about. But what shocked Qin Chen was that such a different fire would actually give birth to intelligence. What kind of flame was this? Any flame that could give birth to intelligence was definitely an incredibly heaven-defying flame. In Qin Chen's understanding, it was impossible for a demon fire to give birth to intelligence because demon fire itself relied on blood beasts for survival and was the source flame within the blood beast's body. Even a blood beast demon emperor couldn't make his own demon fire possess intelligence. Just like human alchemists, even a ninth-order emperor-level alchemist couldn't make the true fire he ignited possess intelligence. Similarly, a ninth-order formation fire couldn't give birth to intelligence. Only some naturally occurring innate flames had the possibility of giving birth to intelligence. Among them, earth fire came from various mysterious places in the world. Their birth often contained extremely terrifying energy, but they also wouldn't give birth to intelligence. The only thing that could give birth to intelligence was sky fire. This kind of flame was born from the will of heaven and earth, so once it successfully grew, it would possess intelligence and become a fire spirit, roaming the world. It was just that sky fire was very rare. Even in the martial domain in his previous life, Qin Chen had never heard of any alchemist subduing sky fire. Could it be that this azure lotus different fire was some kind of sky fire? But the blood spirit fire aura on this azure lotus different fire was very obvious. It was clearly a blood spirit fire, so how could it be sky fire? Although Qin Chen had never seen sky fire in his previous life, he couldn't possibly mistake the difference between sky fire and blood spirit fire. Never mind so much, I'll refine it first. Qin Chen couldn't figure out what this azure lotus different fire was, so he simply decided to refine it first. Above the Soul Sea, countless mental powers were all transformed into layers of shining light, once again wrapping around the azure lotus different fire. Dense mental runes, like layers of light film, rapidly enveloped the azure lotus different fire, trying to forcibly refine it. The azure lotus different fire seemed to sense the danger. The moment it was wrapped by the mental runes, an extremely violent murderous intent raged in the cyan flames, and with a boom, it instantly tore apart the mental runes displayed by Qin Chen. Qin Chen was inwardly shocked. This azure lotus different fire was truly terrifying. His fourth-level spiritual power didn't have a shred of power to resist. After shattering Qin Chen's spiritual power, the violent aura on this azure lotus different fire intensified, pressing down fiercely towards the Sea of Souls below. The terrifying flames immediately collided with the restrictions above the Sea of Souls, like a comet striking a planet. Both sides erupted with terrifying impact. Only a series of cracking sounds could be heard as the restrictions above the Sea of Souls flickered and dimmed, and streaks of white light bloomed with dazzling brilliance, enduring the tremendous burning power of the flames. Qin Chen's heart sank. Once the azure lotus different fire broke through the restrictions above the Sea of Souls, the terrifying power of the flames would immediately enter the Sea of Souls. If the Sea of Souls couldn't hold on, then he would be finished. Myriad God's art. Heavenly evolution forbidden technique. An astonishing spiritual storm swept out, transforming into layers of restrictions, constantly covering the sky above the Sea of Souls. At the same time, Qin Chen's spiritual power instantly formed a spiritual vortex. The top of the vortex was like a sharp cone, spinning wildly, attempting to penetrate into the interior of the azure lotus different fire. Qin Chen knew very well that only by plunging his spiritual power into the interior of the different fire and obliterating its own consciousness could he completely refine it. Bang bang bang. The two forces collided with each other, wrestling for strength. A huge storm was immediately generated above Qin Chen's Sea of Souls. The vast power of the flames swept out, and Qin Chen's fourth-level spiritual power was unable to resist. Under the burning of the flames, it constantly dissipated. How is this possible? Qin Chen was greatly alarmed. Now that the azure lotus different fire was integrated into the sky above his Sea of Souls, his soul power could sense that although this azure lotus different fire was very terrifying, it seemed to be in a preliminary stage and had not become a complete entity, so its aura was unstable and constantly changing. But even with such a flame embryo, his spiritual power was unable to refine it. What kind of flame was this? I don't believe it. Qin Chen became ruthless, and the spiritual storm in his mind was pushed to the extreme. In an instant, countless transparent illusory swords appeared in Qin Chen's mind. Each of these sword shadows contained an extremely astonishing aura, slashing wildly towards the azure lotus different fire. Clang clang clang. Sword light flickered, making a clanging sound. Sword energy crisscrossed, evolving into a monstrous sword formation, with endless the sharp edge runs through the past and present, suppressing down. Seeming to know how powerful it was, the azure lotus different fire's rampage became even more terrifying. Boom! An astonishingly violent aura, as if from the beginning of time, suddenly erupted from the flames. The aura on the azure lotus different fire instantly reached an unimaginable level. Boom! The sky was filled with flames, blocking countless sword lights. At the same time, that violent aura that could penetrate the soul instantly broke through the restrictions above Qin Chen's Sea of Souls. Caca. One restriction after another collapsed under this aura, disappearing into ashes. The Sea of Souls was completely exposed to the azure lotus different fire. The azure lotus different fire, like a beggar who had been hungry for days, looked greedily at the Sea of Souls below and quickly rushed down. Qin Chen's hair stood on end in an instant, and cold sweat broke out. Under this violent aura, Qin Chen felt as if he was being stared at by an ancient beast. The azure lotus flame did not seem to be a flame, but a prehistoric beast, wanting to completely devour him. Just as the flame was about to rush into his Sea of Souls, suddenly, time in the sky above Qin Chen's Sea of Souls froze. The mysterious ancient book, which had been hidden in Qin Chen's mind and had disappeared without a trace, seemed to be stimulated. It suddenly appeared out of thin air, the pages opened, and a ray of brilliant white light, like piercing the sky, suddenly shone on the azure lotus flame, suppressing the azure lotus flame. The originally ferocious azure lotus flame was instantly suppressed into a ball, like a ferocious beast seeing an ancient true dragon. The suppression of that aura made it tremble. Good opportunity. Qin Chen was overjoyed. Knowing that the opportunity was rare, a large amount of spiritual power immediately turned into a torrent, rushing into the azure lotus flame that was being suppressed by the ancient book. The violent aura on the surface of the flame was immediately obliterated by Qin Chen. At the same time, Qin Chen's spiritual power rushed deeper into the azure lotus different fire. Caca caca. Seeming to sense danger, an extremely violent chaotic aura raged in the blue flame. The azure lotus flame vibrated wildly, seeming to want to break free from the shackles of the ancient book and rush out of Qin Chen's mind. But how could Qin Chen give the other party a chance to escape? Taking advantage of the ancient book's suppression of the other party's violent aura, he frantically urged his spiritual power, constantly impacting the core area of the azure lotus flame, frantically engraving a large number of spiritual imprints on it. Finally, The incomparably violent killing intent and murderous aura on the azure lotus flame, under Qin Chen's refinement, turned into pure flame auras. Each of these flame auras was extremely powerful, and it seemed that each one could easily kill a profound-level martial artist. Boom! Finally, the azure lotus flame trembled, and Qin Chen's spiritual power completely entered the azure lotus flame, engraving an imprint on it. At the same time, Qin Chen dispersed a strand of soul power and integrated it into the azure lotus different fire. At this time, the azure lotus different fire still had a conscious resistance, as if instinctively threatened, wanting to break free from Qin Chen's soul refinement, but under the suppression of the mysterious ancient book, the azure lotus flame only struggled for a moment before being completely refined. The moment Qin Chen refined the azure lotus different fire, a large amount of mottled and chaotic aura instantly rushed into Qin Chen's mind, almost collapsing Qin Chen's sea of souls. These auras were extremely mixed and contained a lot of information, including alchemy information, cultivation technique information, and various other information, all kinds of messy things. Qin Chen was taken aback and hurriedly expelled this information from his mind. What a mess! If his soul power was not strong enough to reach the point of gathering souls and solidifying forms, the chaotic aura alone would have shattered his soul and turned him into an idiot. If he successfully refined the azure lotus different fire, but was killed by the information contained in the different fire, then he would be too wronged. I understand. This azure lotus different fire does not give birth to intelligence, but an instinct to devour consciousness. At this time, Qin Chen also completely understood. This azure lotus different fire, he didn't know what kind of mysterious flame it was, possessed amazing spirituality. From the very beginning of its birth, it produced a trace of consciousness. This trace of consciousness drove it to constantly devour the power of heaven and earth that could make it grow. As the azure lotus different fire continued to grow, this consciousness would also continue to improve, and in the end, it would give birth to true intelligence. Judging from the violent killing intent of this consciousness, the azure lotus different fire had devoured countless lives. Any alchemist who tried to refine it would not only be unable to control it, but would be driven by this killing intent consciousness and would be devoured by this azure lotus different fire. Spiritual power and true energy would also become part of the azure lotus different fire's power, becoming the power for it to grow. Each time after devouring an alchemist, the devoured spirit and true energy also caused the azure lotus different fire to give birth to such a violent killing intent. All alchemists who auctioned the azure lotus different flame thought they had obtained an amazing flame. After refining it, they could improve their cultivation. However, they didn't know that what awaited them was being devoured by this azure lotus different flame instead. If Qin Chen hadn't possessed the mysterious ancient book, he would have been in danger just now, and most likely would have been refined into ashes by this azure lotus different flame. This cloaked man probably doesn't know the origin of this azure lotus different flame. Instead, he accidentally discovered the fact that this azure lotus different flame can devour alchemists. Moreover, with the devouring, the power of this azure lotus different flame will continue to increase. So, he thinks that this azure lotus different flame will continue to evolve with the devouring. In the end, after reaching perfection, it will completely stabilize. That's why he keeps taking it out for auction, with the purpose of making this azure lotus different flame continue to evolve. Regarding why this cloaked man wanted to take out this azure lotus different flame for auction, Qin Chen thought about it and could only come up with this possibility, and couldn't help but sneer. Although he didn't know what this azure lotus different flame was, it was too idiotic for the cloaked man to think that this flame would stabilize after continuously devouring. If he guessed correctly, once this azure lotus different flame was allowed to continuously devour the life force of alchemists, in the end, this devouring consciousness would completely become intelligent, and this intelligence would be full of violent killing intent, devouring everything it could devour. At that time, let alone refining it, it might even become an extremely terrifying disaster for the entire Tianwu Continent, and no one would be able to control it. After the azure lotus different flame was refined, the mysterious ancient book instantly returned to calm and disappeared again. However, Qin Chen didn't relax and continued to refine this azure lotus different flame. Gradually, The original killing aura and those negative information on the azure lotus different flame were all refined and disappeared, turning into a layer of gray substance and disappearing. After the azure lotus different flame lost this layer of gray aura, the cyan aura it emitted became even more dazzling and looked extremely comfortable. A dazzling cyan lotus flower floated above Qin Chen's sea of souls, gentle and radiant. The aura of this azure lotus different flame also completely stabilized, no longer changing constantly like at the beginning, and finally stabilized at the fifth order level. That scorching aura, even after being refined, still made Qin Chen feel a burst of palpitations. Qin Chen knew that although this azure lotus different flame remained at the fifth order level, it was definitely not just a fifth order different flame. In the future, with its continuous absorption and growth, it would continue to strengthen. As for what level it could grow to, Qin Chen himself was not clear. Since I don't know if you are the legendary azure lotus different flame, then I will call you Xiaoqing. Taking a deep breath, after Qin Chen completely refined the azure lotus different flame, he immediately urged Xiaoqing to approach the location of the 100 Ghost Curse. At this time, the 100 Ghost Curse had turned into strands of black substance, lingering around Qin Chen's body, forming a very deep-seated energy, dormant in his body. During this period, it continuously eroded and affected Qin Chen's cultivation, extremely deeply rooted and unable to be removed. However, when Xiaoqing approached, the energy of those 100 ghost curses suddenly seemed to see a mouse seeing a cat, exuding a trace of fear, and frantically wandering and fleeing in Qin Chen's body. Qin Chen immediately urged the azure lotus different flame to encircle and intercept. As long as the power of the azure lotus different flame touched a trace of the 100 ghost curse, the originally extremely stubborn black energy instantly melted like snow under the scorching sun, disappearing into ashes, easily without any effort. After half an incense stick of time, the power of the curse in Qin Chen's body completely disappeared, and no trace remained. But when the last trace of curse power was removed, Qin Chen suddenly felt a sense of rebirth all over his body, as if a person who was originally tied with countless iron blocks had unloaded all the iron blocks. The haze that had been suppressed in his heart for many days was swept away in an instant. Boom! At this moment, Qin Chen's Baihui acupoint trembled slightly, his thoughts were as crystal clear as jade, and he was extremely clear, as if he had experienced a rebirth. Huff! The 100 ghost curse that has troubled me for many days has finally been cleared. Qin Chen felt unspeakably relaxed all over his body. When the 100 ghost curse was cleared, his will became more solidified, and his mental power was also sublimated. At the same time, he was also secretly shocked in his heart. This azure lotus different flame was even more terrifying than he had imagined. The 100 ghost curse was an extremely special curse power. Even if the different flame restrained it, it shouldn't be so vulnerable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent so much effort before and still couldn't remove it. But in front of this azure lotus different flame, it was as fragile as an ant, no, even worse than an ant, greatly exceeding Qin Chen's expectations. There are not many days left until the final competition. Although these Northwest 5 nations are located in a remote area, they actually possess many relics from before the Dark Ages, and there are still so many special treasures. In ancient times, they actually possessed an extremely special status. That ancient southern capital has been preserved since ancient times and is the core of this Northwest ruins. There should be a lot of information remaining, so I must not miss it. With a long roar, Qin Chen soared onto the Iron Feather Eagle and urged the Iron Feather Eagle to gallop towards the location of the ancient southern capital. Qin Chen was not very interested in the 5 nations competition, but he was full of curiosity about this ancient ruins, ancient southern capital, and naturally couldn't miss it. Deep in the Xuanzhong Mountains, a black figure was flying quickly through the mountains. Roar! Suddenly, a shocking roar came, and a huge blood beast rushed out from the side. This blood beast was covered in blood-colored scales and covered with barbs. Its bloody mouth opened wide, and it bit down fiercely on the black figure. The stench of the demonic wind swept through, shaking the 10 miles. Late-stage peak Xuan-level blood sickle beast. The black figure seemed unable to react in time. Seeing that the giant mouth of the blood sickle beast was about to swallow it, suddenly, Poochie! A black thread flashed, and the body of the blood-sickle beast was instantly divided into two, and it slammed heavily to the ground, with blood spurting out like a spring. The man in black stopped, smiled coldly, glanced at the blood-sickle beast disdainfully, and was just about to say something when suddenly, his aura changed drastically. What? How did the aura of the azure lotus different flame disappear? How is that possible? A voice of angry trembling came from the cloaked man's mouth. The cloaked man's eyes were shocked, and he kept sensing, but found that the azure lotus different flame, which he could still vaguely sense, had completely disappeared from his perception. Impossible, the cloaked man murmured. From obtaining the azure lotus different flame to finding it again, there were at least a dozen alchemists who were devoured by that different flame, and it was the first time such a situation had occurred. Losing the perception of the azure lotus different flame, how could he find the azure lotus different flame again in this vast Xuanzhong mountain range? The azure lotus different flame will not destroy the Mark I left behind on its own. It must be that kid, that damned kid. The cloaked man roared out, his voice hoarse, and the terrifying sound echoed between heaven and earth, shaking the mountains. Above the boundless and limitless sky, a black shadow maintained an altitude of several thousand meters, flying at extreme speed. The ancient southern capital is tens of thousands of miles away from Martial City. If we bypass the brown rock mountains ahead, we should be arriving at Sky Ancient City soon. 3 days had passed since leaving the profound heavy mountain range. During these 3 days, Qin Chen continuously familiarized himself with the alien fire within his body, finally refining the azure lotus alien fire to perfection. This time, the assessment location for the Five Nations tournament's final trial was the ancient southern capital. However, because the ancient southern capital only appears on the day of the assessment, Qin Chen and Spirit Marshal King Xiao Zhan agreed to meet at Sky Ancient City. Like Martial City, Sky Ancient City is a city located on the border of the Five Nations. This city is located near the ancient southern capital ruins. Every 5 years, the Five Nations tournament attracts a large influx of people, making it a sacred place. Before long, the Brown Rock Mountains were left behind, and ahead was a boundless plain. On the plain, an ancient city appeared at the end of the line of sight, towering on the plain like an embedded diamond. It was Sky Ancient City. Yo! Approaching Sky Ancient City, the Iron Feather Eagle suddenly let out a restless roar, as if sensing something extremely terrifying. No matter how Qin Chen urged it, it was unwilling to move forward. I heard that within 1,000 miles of the ancient southern capital, no blood beast can approach, instinctively feeling a kind of fear. It seems to be true. Qin Chen was astonished. It was rumored that near the ancient southern capital, no blood beast could get close. Qin Chen originally thought it was just an exaggeration, but now it seemed to be true. In the air, there seemed to be a mysterious power that prevented any blood beast from approaching. What kind of ruins is this ancient southern capital? In the end, Qin Chen fell from the back of the Iron Feather Eagle, letting it forage for food near the Brown Rock Mountains before heading alone towards Sky Ancient City in the distance. On the ground, the weeds were more than a person tall, and piles of mottled rocks and gravel were everywhere, full of desolation. Suddenly, the sound of clashing metal came with the wind, entering Qin Chen's ears. Could there be robbers? Qin Chen suddenly looked up, looking into the distance. It is said that the border of the Five Nations is full of chaos, with many bandits, especially in the wilderness near Sky Ancient City. Every 5 years, when the Northwest Five Nations tournament begins, a large number of scattered martial artists and merchant teams come to find business opportunities. And at this time, it is often when the bandits are most rampant. However, Qin Chen had been riding the Iron Feather Eagle and had not encountered any. Unexpectedly, he had only been off the Iron Feather Eagle's back for a short time when he encountered them. He couldn't help but move forward. Hey, it's her, Yu Changxiu. Curious, he flew closer. Several miles away, a group of people came into Qin Chen's view, engaged in battle. Those attacking from the outside were a group of fierce-looking robbers, each with a murderous aura, holding war knives, looking ferocious and evil. And those surrounded were 2 young people. One was a silver-robed youth, with an extraordinary aura, his hair tied with a silver crown, holding a silver fan, his face extremely handsome, giving people a feeling of a graceful young master. But in Qin Chen's view, he was dressed a bit effeminately, and his raised eyebrows and slender eyes gave people a yin and cold feeling, making people feel very uncomfortable. But his cultivation was extremely terrifying, obviously reaching the half-step profound realm. The true Qi in his body had even evolved into true power, which was quite terrifying and amazing. As the silver fan in his hand waved, like a tumbling and soaring silver dragon, it easily tore apart the bodies of those who besieged him. Those who besieged him had almost no power to resist under the dance of the silver fan, and their throats were sealed with a single fan. Late-stage peak heaven realm cultivation, close to half-step profound realm, yet able to cultivate his movement technique to such a degree, and his true Qi is incomparably thick, even no weaker than a general early-stage profound realm martial artist. When did such a genius powerhouse appear in the Northwest Five Nations? If he guessed correctly, the cultivation technique the other party practiced was at least a high-level profound rank technique. In the Northwest Five Nations, it was rarely seen. Moreover, his age was only around 20, yet he was a late-stage peak heaven realm martial artist. Why had he never heard of him before? Shifting his gaze, Qin Chen's attention fell on the beautiful woman next to the silver-crowned youth, still wearing a fluttering white gauze skirt like a fairy, with bright eyes and white teeth, willow eyebrows and red lips. Who else could it be but Yu Changxiu? Not seen for some time, whether it was Qin Chen's illusion or not, Yu Changxiu's temperament was even more refined, and her appearance was even more beautiful. If the previous Yu Changxiu already had a fluttering and fairy-like temperament, now she had a fairy-like posture of riding the wind and returning to the Yao Terrace. Moreover, after not seeing her for a short time, Yu Changxiu's cultivation had actually reached the late-stage peak heaven realm, not weaker than that silver-crowned youth at all. Slightly surprised, Qin Chen was not particularly astonished. After the blood spirit pool baptism, Qin Feng and Yu Changxiu had already broken through to the mid-stage heaven realm. Over this period of time, the blood spirit liquid energy integrated into their bodies had completely transformed the bodies, and their talents would be greatly improved. Breaking through to the late-stage peak heaven realm was also a matter of course. As expected of the ants of the Five Nations, their eyes are not long, and they dare to rob me and Changxiu. The silver-crowned youth's address to Yu Changxiu was very affectionate, seemingly wanting to show off in front of her. His figure was as fast as lightning, walking through the crowd. His right hand waved the silver fan, and the fan-shaped brilliance spread out, like a storm sweeping through. Those who were swept in all vomited blood and retreated, exploding into blood mist. Yu Changxiu frowned, but said nothing. Unexpectedly, I encountered her. After seeing Yu Changxiu, Qin Chen was speechless. This damn heaven was too immoral. If asked who Qin Chen least wanted to see in the entire Northwest Five Nations, it would only be Yu Changxiu. In the blood spirit pool, he accidentally saw her body completely, and she had long hated him to the bone. Every time they met, there would inevitably be a battle. Now, seeing her here, it would definitely be a lot of trouble. Lowering his head, Qin Chen turned and left. Retreat. Seeing that the two young people were so terrifying in cultivation, the leading robber was extremely depressed and almost vomited blood. He had already decided to retreat and decisively gave the order. Swish, swish, swish. The crowd fighting had long lost the will to fight. Hearing the order, where would they continue to stay? One by one, they desperately circulated the true Qi and fled outwards. What made Qin Chen depressed was that the other party, unfortunately, happened to rush towards his direction. Get out of the way. The leading robber, covered in blood, looking ferocious and evil, saw someone blocking the way ahead. Without hesitation, he slashed at Qin Chen with his ghost-headed broadsword, wanting to cut him in two. Hee, this kid is too unlucky, actually appearing here. He's really courting death. The silver-crowned youth originally wanted to chase, but seeing this scene, he couldn't help but stop, crossed his arms, and outlined a leisurely smile at the corner of his mouth, half smiling. Is that him? Yu Changxiu also saw Qin Chen at this moment, and a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. At this moment, the bandit leader's saber had already reached the top of Qin Chen's head. Before the saber fell, the sharp blade had already turned into a raging waves, completely enveloping Qin Chen. That saber aura crisscrossed in all directions. Leaving aside a living person, even a piece of iron would be cut in two. Qin Chen was depressed. He hadn't provoked this guy, had he? It was fine that he ran towards him, but he even attacked him. Did he really think he was a lamb? A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. Swish! A sword light flashed in the void. In the next moment, the leading bandit's figure stagnated, his eyes widened in shock and anger as he stared blankly at his chest. A fine line had already been cut on the robe on his body, and a trace of blood seeped out from the fine line. Immediately, his body split into two, separating into upper and lower halves, flying out 10 meters away. When the other bandits saw this, how dared they approach Qin Chen? They were so scared that they fled in all directions. HMPH. He didn't die. The smile on the silver-crowned youth's face solidified, his eyes turned gloomy, and he snorted coldly. He turned his head, only to find that Yu Changxiu was also looking at him, with a strange look in her eyes. Changxiu, do you know him? The silver-crowned youth instinctively began to regard Qin Chen with hostility. Yu Changxiu ignored him and instead swept towards Qin Chen, frowning and saying, "You're actually acting alone. Didn't you travel with the Great Qi Kingdom's team?" Seeing that the other party had already discovered him, and had even taken the initiative to speak, it would be too petty of him to turn around and run away again. He had no choice but to stop and laugh. "Aren't you the same? Changxiu, who exactly is he?" The silver-crowned youth came closer, looking at Qin Chen coldly, his expression slightly changing. He and Yu Changxiu were not old acquaintances. They had only met when they followed their master to the Lingqian sect this time. At first sight of the beauty, he was immediately captivated by Yu Changxiu. As a genius of the Luxian sect, the women who admired him were as numerous as the hairs on a cow, but those women were simply not worth mentioning compared to Yu Changxiu. He couldn't imagine how such a heavenly being could emerge from a small place like the Northwest. After learning that Yu Changxiu was going to travel to Tianwu City for training, he proposed to go out with her for training. Yu Changxiu originally refused, but under the order of the Lingqian sect master, she finally agreed. In the silver-crowned youth's opinion, with his cultivation and talent, he only needed to show off a little during the training process, and what kind of woman would not be charmed by him? But what he didn't expect was that Yu Changxiu had always been indifferent to him along the way, making him extremely uncomfortable. It was not easy for a group of bandits to appear, and he was just preparing to perform well and impress her, but who knew that such a young man would pop up? What's more, Yu Changxiu was usually extremely indifferent to anyone, but when she saw that young man, a trace of strangeness flashed in her eyes. This made the silver-crowned youth feel as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and he developed a strong hostility towards Qin Chen. Yu Changxiu's eyes flashed, and she smiled faintly. "He is a friend of mine, called Qin Chen, and he will also participate in this Gunan-Du competition." Friend. The silver-crowned youth snorted coldly. What kind of genius could come from such a small place as the Five Nations? He didn't take Qin Chen's strength seriously at all. However, the strange look in Yu Changxiu's eyes and the smile on her face made him very uncomfortable, and he couldn't help but snort. Qin Chen also looked at Yu Changxiu as if he had seen a ghost. When had Yu Changxiu ever met him without shouting and killing? She was actually introducing him to others as her friend. What a joke. It would be a blessing if she didn't say they were enemies. He looked at the silver-crowned youth suspiciously, and felt the aura of hostility on his body, as well as the faint smile on Yu Changxiu's lips. Qin Chen seemed to understand something in his heart. Immediately, he laughed. "Ha ha, Yu Changxiu, who is this? Why don't you introduce him?" Yu Changxiu said lightly, "This is Li Kunyun, a genius disciple of the Luxian sect." Luxian sect? Does the Five Nations have such a sect? He couldn't help but be stunned and said, "Luxian sect, what kind of sect is that?" Yu Changxiu looked at Qin Chen's expression, which didn't seem to be fake, and couldn't help but be stunned and said, "Don't you know?" "Know what?" Yu Changxiu said speechlessly, "It seems you really don't know. Gunan-Du has always been a secret of our Northwest Five Nations. Because our Northwest Five Nations rarely communicate with the outside world, it was only circulated in our Five Nations before. However, not long ago, someone somehow spread the news of Gunan-Du to outside the Five Nations. Outside our Five Nations is the extremely vast Dewei dynasty. This Luxian sect is an extremely powerful sect in the Dewei dynasty, very close to our 5 nations. This time, the 5 nations competition will not only have geniuses from our Northwest 5 nations participating, but also many forces from outside the 5 nations who want to explore the legendary Gu Nan Du. The Luxian sect is only one of them. Hearing this, Qin Chen was stunned. These things had actually happened. He couldn't help but say, would the 5 nations agree to them? Halfway through his words, Qin Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was really asking too much. The rulers of the 5 nations would definitely not be willing to have their own interests occupied by others. However, in this world, it is ultimately strength that speaks. With the strength of the 5 nations, they cannot stop the invasion of the Dewei dynasty at all. They can only swallow their anger, mediate, and try to divide the benefits as much as possible. Moreover, now that Gu Nan Du has been known to the outside world, then from now on, the blood spirit pool will also be known to the outside world, and they will share a piece of the pie. Li Kunyun squinted at Qin Chen, a smile on his lips, and said lightly, "Your Excellency comes from a remote and backward place in the northwest, so naturally you are not very clear about my Luxian sect. In fact, Your Excellency does not know how big the Tianwu Continent is, with its vast territory. The entire northwest is just a forgotten corner, like an ant. The so-called geniuses of the northwest are also vulnerable. When placed outside, they are just the weakest kind. Not to mention anything else, just this Gu Nan Du, the northwest has not been able to study it clearly for so many years. This time, our Luxian sect is here to thoroughly investigate the Gu Nan Du ruins and serve the geniuses of the world." In his words, an arrogant posture was revealed. This arrogant appearance made Qin Chen too lazy to look at him. Luxian sect, is it very awesome? Not to mention the Luxian sect, even the Dewei dynasty, he had never heard of in his previous life. Obviously, it was not a remarkable force, and he didn't know where the confidence came from. Li Kunyun's face darkened. If Yu Changsu hadn't been present, he wouldn't have minded teaching the other party a lesson to let him know what was high and low. "Qin Chen, are you going to Tianwu City?" Yu Changsu suddenly said. "That's right." Qin Chen nodded, looking stunned. This girl wouldn't want to travel with him, would she? Could it be that she wanted Li Kunyun to attack him? Li Kunyun saw that the situation was not right. This Qin Chen seemed to be going to travel with them. Originally, he and Yu Changsu were doing well, and they had plenty of opportunities to be alone. Now that Qin Chen had come in, it would definitely affect his plan. He couldn't help but say gloomily, "Brother Qin, you are alone, you should still have something important to do, right?" In his eyes, there was a stern warning, falling on Qin Chen.